Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Miller. I'm the CEO of the World Olympians Association. Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Daigaho. Welcome to Ollie House, Paris 2024 at Castapam, the home, away from home, the home at the Olympic Games for Olympians. We're very lucky to be here today in this beautiful building, and we've got a very interesting panel discussion for you. So to kick off, I'd like to invite the Vice Chancellor and President of Hong Kong Baptist University, Alex Y, to come and make some opening remarks. Alex.
Thank you. As Mike said, we listen to our boss. Did I stand it right? Okay. Dear Mr. Joël Bouzou, I hope I got your name right, okay. The President of World Olympian Association, Mr. Seung-min, the first Vice Chair of IOC Athletics Commissions. Ms. Yang Yang is on her way. She should be here soon. Honorable guests, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, bonjour. Good morning. I'm honored to welcome you all to this truly momentous occasion in Paris, against the backdrop of Paris 2024 Olympics and Paralympics, hosted by our university, the Hong Kong Baptist University. The two-day Journey to Excellence HKBU in Paris event, which is held today and tomorrow, as well as a showcase of Professor Yannis Pisilades and his team's research work during the Paris 2024 Olympics and Paralympic period, optimize the spirit of excellence and innovation that our university, HKBU, strives to advocate and embody. HKBU had long been a trailblazer, pioneered new frontiers in transdisciplinary teaching and research with strengths in creative media, health and drug discovery, humanities and cultures, data analytics, and AI. In this two-day event, we convene to delve into the discussions that sit at the intersection of human endeavor and technological advancement, specifically within the realms of sports. The panel discussion today, as Mike talked about earlier, Enhancing Life Outside Sport for Olympian and Elite Athletes, promise to shed light on the multifaceted lives of athletes, exploring avenues for growth and development beyond their sporting achievement. We recognize the importance of nurturing a holistic environment for our elite athletes, one that supports their well-being and ambitions in a life that contributes to flourish, that continues to flourish even when they step off the sport arena. Tomorrow, we'll discuss science, technology, AI, and sport. It's a testament to our dedication to pushing the boundaries of what is possible. In an era where technology advances in a lightning speed, we must harness those tools to not only improve performance, but also to safeguard the health and future of our athletes. AI, or artificial intelligence in particular, hold huge potential to revolutionize how we understand, analyze, and enhance the sporting experience. I am in awe of the collective brilliance, passions, and collaborative spirit that fill this room today. Each of you, our distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and participants, brings a unique spark and contribution that will ignite remarkable ideas and synergies that propel us towards even greater achievement in the field of sport. On behalf of HKBU, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the World Olympian Association and the Ollie House for their hospitality and great support and collaborative spirit, without which this special HKBU event in Paris would not have come to fruition. Your commitment to fostering unity and innovation is truly inspiring. Once again, I welcome you to this exciting event. United by a common passion for sport and its potential to transform lives, let the dialogues we engage in today and tomorrow be enlightening and enriching as we collectively strive to elevate the world of sport to a new height. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I've been to the university. I've seen the facilities. They're amazing. And I know you're also investing quite a bit of money in enhancing those facilities as well. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the university in the future. So today's topic, enhancing life outside sport for Olympians and elite athletes. And I'm very pleased and honored to invite to the stage the World Olympians Association President, Joël Bouzou, OLY, 5-time Olympian, modern pentathlete, also the founder of Peace in Sport, which I think he'll probably talk about today as well, advisor to His Serene Highness Prince Albert of Monaco, also an Olympian, and Joël never stops. Service to society, service to Olympians, that's our motto, and talking about enhancing the lives of Olympians, elite athletes outside sport. That's what Joël will talk about now. No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Welcome to everybody in Holy House here in beautiful Paris. Mike, I am only a 4-time Olympian, so I'm not competing here.
Oh, okay.
I'm very happy to see Olympians here, and I would like to thank Hong Kong Baptist University for this conference. This is very important topic. Before talking about the World Olympians Association, and at the same time, I would like to say what is an Olympian and why we are addressing these topics today. Before that, I would like to recognize two persons, Rui, my friend here, IOC member, who is also a champion for peace and who is really a peace activist, I would say, using sport as a tool. Thank you for being here. I would like also to recognize Patrick Singleton, board member of WA. He's the one who had the brilliant idea to create OLY, which is a recognition of Olympians. And that gives me the opportunity to talk about WA, but also Olympians. What is an Olympian? An Olympian is more than a champion. Because to become an Olympian, you need to qualify for the games. And to qualify for the games, you need to dedicate yourself to your sport, passion, to reach the high level. And it takes between 10 and 12 years sometimes. But during this journey, you become sometimes a different person. You leave your origin, your region, and you become a national representative. You become an ambassador of not only your local culture, but your national culture. And one day, when you meet the others, especially when it is in the Olympic village, you embrace the other cultures. So together we are like a pillar of society, global pillar of society. We are a pillar of diversity. We are a pillar of tolerance. We are a pillar of performance. And we are a pillar, I would say, of humanity. If you put that together, you have an incredible force for the good in society. And we split our actions in two directions. One is the service to Olympians, and we'll talk about that. And the other is the service to society by the Olympians. If you are known by your communities, whatever at the local stage or at the national or international stage, you have a power. What do you do with this power? Do you use it only for you as a person? Very good. I mean, education and so on. We are talking about that. But if you have an influence on the youth, and sometimes even on the politicians, on the governments, then that's another power, which we want to also enhance. So if we give the skills to the Olympians for that, if we promote the best practices, and that's the goal of the WA, if we promote the best practices so that they can be duplicated, both in terms of service to Olympians and in terms of society, then you have what is the WA today. And this is the house of the Olympians. So to do that, once an Olympian, always an Olympian, we need to recognize the Olympians, we need to connect, we need to support, and we need to promote giving back to Olympians, giving back to society. So if I speak about how to recognize Olympians, and I was speaking about Patrick's idea to create a post-nominal letter. This post-nominal letter, OLY, which you can see here, you can attach it to your name. And it's like a PhD of sport, 10, 12 years of dedication, performance, delivering on time, a performance. If you take these skills and you transfer them to another domain, then you have also people performing in another domain. And it could be at the service of society, at the service of companies, and so on. So we need to recognize that. So today we have 22,000 OLYs among the 100,000 living Olympians all around the world in 110 countries. And I see some Olympians here. So, for example, Patrick Singleton, OLY. He can put that on his business card, and people will know immediately if he applies for something, then they will know immediately that he's an Olympian, with all the skills attached to having become an Olympian. We need to connect the Olympians also. I mean, but recognizing them, some of them are remarkable because they have been performing not only in, Mike, I think it's the previous one, they have been performing not only in sport but also in society. You have seen the slides here at the posters here at the entrance, and you have seen two incredible names, Jesse Owens and Luz Long. They will be recognized later tomorrow. Because they have not only been champions, they have been a symbol of something in society. And that's why we recognize them as Olympians for life. And we have some of them like that. They deserve to be recognized. Through the recognition, we also make society recognize the value of Olympians, so that the society can use the Olympians for the better of society, for the better of the world. And once an Olympian, always an Olympian. It doesn't stop when you disappear from this world. It stays in the memories for what you have done, what you have achieved. And that's what we want also to promote. How do we connect them? We connect them, and there are 111 National Olympians Association today. So they exchange together, but we connect them also through the World Olympians Forum. The first one was organized in 2015. Then we had one in Lausanne, and we had one this year in Istanbul. In this World Olympians Forum, we meet, not like in Holy House, but we meet to work very seriously, both at the service to Olympians and at the service of society, promoting the best practices so that they can be duplicated. We have Holy House. This one is particularly special, and I want to thank Caisse d'Épargne for their support and the French Olympians for giving us the possibility to be here today. It's not only the way and the opportunity for the Olympians from all genders, countries, generations, sports to meet here in this place. It is also receiving through Eurosport the feed of the Olympic Games. We have 40 sites which are connected to this place, which means that Olympians visiting us here, if they don't have tickets, they can still watch their sport from Holy House, which I think is very important. We have also a special wall where you can leave your mark. Olympians come and sign, then we keep this. So after X Holy Houses, we will have a lot of walls with signatures of Olympians, which we will keep forever. So that's also how to connect Olympians through communication. So maybe we have a website for sure. We have social media. We have WhatsApp groups. They can be global. They can be by continent, so that at the national level, Olympians can exchange from one nation to the other, and we keep them very close. How do we support Olympians? Through scholarships, through the collaboration with IOC, and especially the IOC Athletes Commission, some of their programs. We have a special connection with the University of London, where we deliver courses, where we are building up skills. But we have also, in the frame of support, we have also very special musculoskeletal study and survey, which gives us feedback on the health of Olympians. Practicing high-level sport has an impact on your body, has an impact on your health. Sometimes we want to make sure that we have healthy people living a very nice life for the future. And so we try to understand what is the best strategy in terms of physical practice after the end of the career to remain in good health. Do you give the same advice to a 1500-meter swimmer and to someone doing weightlifting? Maybe not. So that we do studies on Olympians after the end of the career to see if there are problems, what are the problems, and how can we anticipate and even treat them to make sure that they remain in good health. So that's on the question of health. We have also mental support for athletes, for Olympians during and after the career, mentoring programs, and so on. Now, the point is giving back. This is what is the most interesting for me. And I would say you deserve support when you are an Olympian because you represent something, because you are an example for the youth, for the kids. But if you give back, you deserve even more support. And this is like a virtual circle. If you give back to society as an Olympian, you will also drag behind you more support for young Olympians to become good Olympians, to become role models in society after, and not only to be there for performances. The performances are fantastic. This is somewhere the absolute of humanity because you reach a level which is absolutely incredible as an example. It is about beauty. It is about excellence. But if you are also an excellent role model, you can change society. And that's what we do at Peace and Sport. That's what we want to do at WA through all the role models we have. So we have a service to society program, and we deliver grants to NOAs to run programs. When they run the programs, we extract the success lines of the programs so that they can be copied, they can be duplicated when the conditions are the same in other places, depending on the culture, depending on the continents, depending on the conditions. And we try to promote these best practices. And if you go on our website, you will see a lot of these practices like here on the screen. For example, this program in Zimbabwe, which is a chicken farm. It has also an economic component, and the success of the farm is giving the possibility to finance access to sport for underprivileged kids. So that's something we want to promote every time it is possible. It is also giving to young athletes through the World Academy of Sport, where we have courses. Some are completely free, and we give them. Some are with a reduction of the price, so that we have a lot of young athletes who can also benefit from that. So this is what I wanted to tell you. We are very happy of this collaboration, and we are also very happy because here in Paris we will have new Olympians joining, and a lot of them will become OLYs, and a lot of them will not only deliver performances, but also will serve the society in the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Joël. Before you leave the stage, could you talk a little bit about peace and sport and about not only what the Olympians and elite athletes give to everyone around the world, but also what it gives to them in terms of how they feel about themselves, because they're helping so many people in very difficult circumstances in the, let's call them hotspots or danger zones in the world?
Thank you. I'll make a very short summary. I'm obliged to talk about sport and I'm obliged to talk about peace, but I will be very fast. For me, sport is not only about performance. It is everyone in sport is faced to the equity of the rule. We are equal. We are equal at the start, which is something exceptional in the world today. So let's make a treasure from that, equality in front of the rule, which means that at the end of the competition, there is inequality, but it's a just inequality. And that's a lesson for the youth. That's a lesson to create hope. That's a lesson to mobilize energy. So all together, we represent this community. And it is a basis on which you can build up self-esteem. And if you build up self-esteem, you can build up the acceptance of the difference. And if you build up the acceptance of the difference, you build up living together. That's a very simple idea, but it works. It works, and sport is unique for that. Then when you talk about peace, if you ask the question to some people, what is peace? People will say, oh, peace is when there is no war. That's a very easy answer. But behind that, why there is no war? Because the differences are accepted. And how do you accept the differences? If you have the opportunity to dialogue, and how can we create here the opportunity to dialogue? By setting up sport programs and customizing them. That's the basic of peace and sport. We use sport as a tool to create language between divided communities in order to bring them together and at least accept coexistence and maybe later enjoy coexistence. And for us, the champions, the role models, the Olympians, for example, but also other champions, they are accelerators for that, because they can convince kids to join sport. And you don't need sophisticated equipment. I have done programs, for example, on the Tanganyika Lake, where you take 2 wooden sticks, a fishing net, you put them in between, and you have a volleyball court. And then I bring an Olympian, like, for example, Ryu. And he will say, if he's a volleyball player, he's a tennis table player, but if he's a volleyball player, he will say, you have seen me on a flat screen in the Olympics. And with sophisticated equipment. I don't need sophisticated equipment to play volleyball. I need a rule. I need equity. And then I need partners and opponents. Sometimes it's one team against another. Sometimes it's a mixed team against another mixed team between 2 communities. And if you make them play, you make them understand each other and slowly, slowly, slowly accept the difference and create peace. And it can be sustainable, and it's not obligatory expensive. That's what is peace and sport. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joël. If you'd like to take a seat, that would be great. So next up, we've got the IOC Athletes Commission Vice Chair, Olympic champion, former mayor of the Olympic Village, and on the Coordination Commission for LA 28. I'd like to invite to the stage Seung-min Ryu, OLY. Clicker's here.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Let me try first. Oh, they're moving? Okay. Mike is here. Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here. Then thank you for a really kind introduction for me, Mr. Joël Bouzou, for founder of the World Olympian Association of Peace and Sports, and really great to be here as an Olympian, as an elite athlete, for dedicated more than 25 years. From my sports, table tennis, I participated 4 Olympic Games, actually, from Sydney 2000. It was 18 years old. And then I retired after the London Games. It was my age 32 years old, which is I fully dedicated about my sports career developing in my life of more than 25 years. Then I would like to really express my gratitude to the opportunity to present today in front of you. Some of the Olympians, maybe not, maybe elite athlete, maybe not, but why we are all here because of the supporting athlete and supporting sports career and then supporting other ways. Already Joël Bouzou explained about the World Olympian Association, what important means OLY, and also peace and sports. I'm actually involving all the way, like a champion for peace through the peace and sports, and also OLY, Olympians and under the Olympic Association, Olympian Association. And also I'm working and serving as an IOC member and vice chair of the IOC Athlete Commissions since 2016. Actually, this Olympic game is my last term as an IOC membership and also Athlete Commission member. So I would like to introduce of the, Athlete Career Plus, which is really important to career transition, because based on my experience for 25 years for the dedicated my sports, that always have facing of the challenge of the retirement or injury or maybe career transitions. I think this is really important matter for all the athletes and maybe entourages altogether. What is Athlete 365 Career Plus? What Career Plus aim for? I'd like to explain since now. As I mentioned that athletes are facing very diverse challenging in terms of injury, in terms of retirement, in terms of some of the situations, maybe today or tomorrow or maybe next few days. Maybe during the Olympic Games, maybe athlete have got injured, serious injured. He decided unintendedly to give up the Olympic Games. This is really a sad situation. That's why we prepare and providing to the elite athlete to Career Plus program, which is really well prepared for their successful career transitions. Athlete 365 Career Plus has launched 2005, initiated by Athlete Commissions of the IOC. We continue to strengthen the position of the athlete at the heart of the Olympic movement, then how they well prepare of their successfully career transitions, even on and off the field of play. This is our goals. This support athlete or stage of their career, which is elite athlete or Olympians and youth athlete, or even coaches, become the coaches and doctors and so on. Then also health athlete, dual career models, which is mixed matches, educational and also sports career. Then also provide advice and training and peer-to-peer learning, which is, as Joël Bouzou told me, that we are all one team, and how we make the build as a one team and respect each other's all of these programs. Athletes need to be prepared for career transition, as once in their lifetime, they will retire. So preparation is really important. Even early preparation is even better. The high level of focus and dedication in their athlete career, that they have fair opportunities to discover different aspects of their personality and identities. Athletes with a high athlete identity have found it harder to adjust to life after sports, had a lack of retirement plan, and had more frequent and physiological and difficult compared with those who identified in other ways. This is a very important one, planned and unplanned. Then studies have shown that those athletes who planned their retirement in advance had a higher cognitive, emotional, and behavioral readiness for their career transition compared with those who had unplanned or forced retirement. The research reveals that planning for retirement while still competing can actually enhance and improve an athletic career because it gives sense of stabilities. So this is education and employment pathway, but this is also like a difference of each countries and NOCs and culture and languages. But we have a diverse program provided for athletes to support each steps of the education and employment pathway. Like junior levels and senior international level and after retirement, each different sector, we have provided all the athletes during their youth and then during the high level competition career, then after retirement. This is a very great initiative and opportunity as Athlete 365 Career Plus workshops. I'm the facilitator of the educate them to how we guidance to the prepare of their second life. I call second life. So we have the Athlete 365 Career Plus workshop, which help athletes discover what they want out of life and develop the skills needed for the career outside sports, which is we educate them how we build a network and how prepare their CV, resume, because I fully dedicate my sports career. Is when I was a young athlete, my coach said all the time, no pain, no gain. This principle is always pushing me hard to dedicate my sports career. Even I want to be other activities, but they not allowed. This is our culture when I was young athlete. But now, totally different. Now generation, they really want to engage all the other activities rather than their sports career only focus on this. That's why this is a really great the workshop, the opportunity to get the other ideas and network opportunities, then learn how to write down the CV resume and the interview skill as well. This is for the benefit for the athlete during the Career Plus workshop, is how to make the career transition successfully, then how to approach the as employment, then how to build their entrepreneurship abilities. Then also networking skill development and also communication, how to communicate with each other than others. Because we all have the different background and different culture, and also we can use different languages, then we all educate them how we approach it properly to communicate skill. Yeah, this is me. Then when I had an interview with our team of the Athlete Career 365 Plus career, this is really help me to explore diverse, future choices. Even after I retirement, fortunately, I become a coach immediately. Then I'm really a lucky person. But one of my colleague did not have the chance to become the coach. Then he had a struggle to find another job, and they're not prepared before the retirement. Is very much a struggle. So this kind of workshop and programs really encouraged and inspired me to prepare how I developed myself, career transition skills. This is my one of the colleague is Humphrey Kayange. He's also Olympians and OLY, and he always emphasized that the dual career is important because one of the kind of education and one of the kind of our sports career a mixed match is really important. But I said some of the country is like cultural barrier that we are always focused on my sports career, then we lost our opportunity to learn any educational programs. But nowadays we are focusing on the balance of the educational career, then also sports career to enhancing their ability. There are diverse education opportunities and success stories you can reach out. So, yeah, many kind of stories, but the time limited, I don't want to rush up. Then this is also another story of our colleague. She said after retirement, the idea of starting at the bottom of the career ladder is mentally quite tough. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go, but education has given me options. This is a very important message, the options. We provide the elite athletes and Olympians and coaches and entourages, give them options. Not only one options, but diverse options, education and sport careers and so on. Also, this very unique experience and opportunity is the Business Accelerators program will help and guide you over the coming month in your pursuit, set up your own business in a sustainable way. Because I want to be like employment. Some of them want, owner, want to be an owner. Then this is give them a really good guidance how to business accelerate of their own capacity. Then this is another very meaningful program, which is Athletes 365 Mentoring. In November 2022, the Athlete Department launched a new initiative that pairs Olympians and Paralympians with a representative from worldwide Olympic partner and the IOC staff. This global program allows athletes to increase their employability and grow their network. It allows the staff from the tops, which we have top sponsors, Samsung, Coca-Cola, and Airbnbs, to connect with the athlete and collaborate important initiatives together. Then these are some of the opportunities provided for athletes for their career transition employment. You can look at it. The global job opportunities use our top network, and also latest job opportunity at the IOC office in Lausanne, for example, internships, and this initiative by this Career Plus. Then you can reach out to Athletes 365 Career Portal. It's an athlete get 12-month free accesses to the Career Portal, providing athlete-centric career development content, free LinkedIn learning courses, and support. You can reach out this program and Athlete Career Plus Portal. You can get so many informations and so many guidance from this Career Portal. Then this also very important, Athlete 365 Learning, which is all include our Career Plus platform. So athlete voice for athlete communication commissions and career transitions and professional sports management and sports event management, sports coaching and media, understanding sports injuries, and then safeguarding athlete from harassment and abuse. All include this athlete learning programs. So this is our achievement and results so far. Then overall of career services on the athlete support and partnership unit, then more than 59,000 participants. Then also first round of the mentoring program, which I mentioned in 2022, was successfully completed by 49 mentees and 66 mentors registered. The next one will be launched in this year. Business Accelerators, the second round of this entrepreneurship courses was launched recently with 134 new participants under virtual and boot camps for a total of 731 athletes since 2021, which is great achievement result, but we are trying to engage as much as we can. So prepare yourself to catch the opportunity. So join the Athletes 365 and Career Plus you will be changed your mindset. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Just stay there for a second.
Okay.
Just want to make the point. The IOC runs great programs. They're not just for Olympians.
Yes.
It's for elite athletes, and it's also for aspiring young Olympians or aspiring young athletes as well. You talked about the pain and the gain. Do you think, obviously, I think things have probably changed since then. Do you think the emphasis was too much on the pain and not enough on trying to build all aspects, so the mental side as well, so that you were better able to perform?
To be honest, I didn't realize that no pain, no gain principle is the reg of the approach diverse way, diverse opportunity. But since 2016, when I became the IOC member, then also working with the IOC Athlete Commission within these diverse programs, I realized that this is a really great idea and great opportunity for the athlete. Today, I accompany with my family. My kids are 12 and 9 years old. They also they wants to dream to be a professional football player. Now, really professionally, engage of their dream. But just little things, I emphasize them, no pain, no gain principle still. But I would like to give them the diverse opportunity. That's why I accompany with them to be here, because they want to, a wide range to looking for their future rather than only focus on their sports career. That's why this is a really great opportunity for me and also for you guys for the, approach diverse way. This is a really great idea and great, principle rather than no pain, no gains.
And do you think that if you had been doing education at the same time as training, would that have made it better or worse for your performance?
I have no idea actually, but to be honest, finally I won the Olympic medals and then I became the Olympians. But looking back to my student career, I always focus on my sports career. But if not dedicated like this, I couldn't achieve my Olympic goal. Like Olympic gold medal, I won the silver and bronze and so on. But nowadays, generation has been changed. But as you said, Olympians more than Olympic champions. It means just participation and they're doing their best for their dreams come true. That's already achieved. Already, they're Olympians. So it means it's diverse way in diverse programs. When you are approached, it will be more important than full dedicated of their sports career.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Yeah. Just stay there. We're going to bring some more people on the stage so we can have a discussion.
Okay, thank
you. No, stay there. Stay there.
Here?
Don't
Okay.
move. Don't move. Don't move.
I think Miss is Joël.
Yeah. No.
President always middle.
Okay, so I'd like to invite two other people onto the stage. First is Daria. So Daria Obratov OLY. So it's not just summer sports here. She's a luge Olympian, studying for her PhD in sports medicine, focusing on anti-doping research. And could we also have Professor Patrick Lau to the stage from Hong Kong Baptist University? Are you still the director of the Center for Olympic Studies? Where is he?
Patrick's upstairs.
He's upstairs. Ah, okay. So we won't. Joël, would you like to come back onto the stage? Let's start with Daria. Do you want to just talk about your transition from competing to working in education. How difficult was it to do that, to make that transition?
I would say every Olympian or athlete find themselves in a very hard moment when they realize that their career is coming to the end, and I knew that I want to dedicate my life to sport because sport is my life, and sport gave me so much. I'm here and honored to be here with these amazing people. I'm honored that I am Olympian, and I knew that when I finish my career, I want to give something back to sport, and I can do that only through education. And I loved science. I was also a good student always, and I realized that that is my way to still be into sport, connected with sport, and to educate and to be better, to enhance my knowledge. And I want to inspire women to be involved in sport and in the science, to show that we can do that and be more involved, that it's not only men's job.
I think also it's important to note that the Paris Games are the first total parity games, 50% women, 50% men for the first time throughout all the competitions, which is a great achievement and has been fought for a long time. Did you find that the skills that you needed in order to make it as an Olympian were similar to the skills that you're now using in education for research and for your PhD?
I would say yes, because as an athlete, you have a goal that you want to achieve. You must be focused in it. You must dedicate your life, almost half of your life during your sport career to achieve some goals. And in education, I would say it's the same. For PhD, you must be focused. You must be dedicated. And you must strive to make goals come true, and that is what I'm doing, actually.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Never giving up.
Good.
Okay. I remember my first meeting talk about the retirement after the career. It's 2002, after I won my first gold. Then I had the trip. I was representing the International Skating Union as athletes to the World Athletes Forum, which is held by IOC every year. At that time, I thought it was the only issue in China. But actually, then I realized that was a global issue. And it was a great opportunity to listen from a different angle of athletes talk about the issue of retirement. And then, you need, I want to help, but I don't know how. So then I remember I was elected as an athlete member of Athlete Commission in 2010. I had my first meeting in IOC, and they were presenting the global map of the IOC athlete career program. That was really touched me, and then I realized I have the responsibility to bring the program back to China to help the athletes there. So that's how I started, which is I start from 2011, and it's been there until now. I have a little team who is helping the athletes since then. Now that's prepared by the little team. So we are not only focusing. The foundation started with the kids' education in sports, which is also issue in China with the where our kids more focus on the academic area. So sports is really something we want to promote. And on top of that, 2011, we started distributing the ACP program, Athlete Career Program, and guided by the IOC program. And until now, we have over about 10,000 athletes has been into our program, and which is I'm very happy I'm very happy to see the program very much well received by the athletes. There's culture difference. I give example from our culture. Athlete, when they retire, they were encouraged say you start from scratch. Now you're on your own. I mean, you have to fight for your future. But actually, from this ACP program, they encourage you. The first, they tell you you learn something from sports. That's your specialties when you go to the business. So that's very encouraging. It's a very different culture. So when you see those two cultures that come together, it's very powerful. So let me see what they prepared for this. Yes, I believe you already introduced the IOC program, so I don't want to talk that too much. How can we go to the next page? Okay. Can you see there? Okay. What do we focus on? First of all, it's not only athletes in the system, but also retired athletes. Some of them are even over 40s, 50s, like my age. They retire a long time, but they're still looking for something, still passion for them. So they participate in our programs. That we encourage them to do more. So not only current athletes, but also retired athletes. Then what's the objective is to, of course, for their retirement to have a better future. Okay. Okay, I will talk what I know. Yes, you'll see all the information up there. Maybe later on we can have a discussion. So mainly it's on top of IOC programs, we also do a lot of consultation with the athletes. Some athletes after training, a couple of days training with us, they are going to the business world, but they still have some difficulties to really get into the work. How do I say, get comfortable with the work. I give you an example. One sailor from our national team who retired, working in a boat company, but for him, the passion is about developing the sports. So he wants to try to convince the company have the youth program for developing sports. Also, it's helping their business as well. He has the idea, so he talked to the president. Of course, they are happy to see more details, but he doesn't know how to make the presentation or put program together. So he came to us, and then we find an expert who is very well known in the sports business. So together with his idea, a passion, to come up with a proposal, which was very welcomed by the company. That's how we try to help the athlete, not only just the training 2 days, but also accompany them to get into their career. And in recent years, the entrepreneurship become very popular in China because Chinese government launched the sports industry plan, which is a couple years ago, 5-6 years ago. So sports become it's big business become. And for athletes, it's something they are looking for the opportunities. Mostly become like clubs. How do we have the clubs to make a business, but same time also doing the sports. So we also start this entrepreneur training. We of course it's from athlete transfer to have a club. You need not only sports skill, but you also have to manage the company management. Also the legal support and the accounting I'm terrible with that. Those kind of how do we make a business put together the structures. So that's we also have that kind of training program for athletes. That was very very popular, and every time we have a training, it's very hard to get a spot, but we're also careful to pick up the athlete because some of them they really are already in the business. So we try to help them not only for start, but also on the way, how can make a successful. And then, of course, internship. It's the most important way encouraging the companies to have an internship. We work with Chinese the sponsors for Chinese Olympic Committee, even some service company, for example, the Hilton That's the hotel. They don't have internship usually because they're a service company. But we bring the athlete to visit their companies and to let them know what's the working environment. And it's not alone, but just put you in there. But you also have a supporting team, so etc. Just give an example. So we also we work with the Coca-Cola during the Youth Olympic Games. They gave us a 10 spot for 2 months for athletes to working with them to serve the Youth Olympics, which was very successful because athletes come back to the Olympic environment. They were so excited, but at the same time they learn how to work with companies, which is we have several companies are really supporting us, and the same with Daiko. But we have another company, Daiko, and a FESCO, which is a Chinese company, and the Daiko, they were together. And the last thing I want to say is insurance. It's not much, fortunately, but there's some issues. Some athletes after retire, they have some illness, and so we try to help. So we work with the insurance company. Then they can, on top of the retirement, they can also help the athlete who have the issue. So I think I already introduced some of them. That was some pictures from the past. Oh, yeah. So that's, you can see, I will change, that's internship with the company. Oh, the biggest internship is the company from France. What's called the name? The French company. Decathlon in Chinese.
Oh,
Decathlon. Yeah, they were the biggest employee company work with us. Yeah, sorry, I should remember that. What else? That's an internship, an entrepreneurship. What do I have done? And that's the figure way from the last over 10 years. So, the one thing that hit my team. Okay, so there is something we need for the future. We need to work on more. It's the early intervention. It's not only after retirement, but also early because we all know when you're athlete, if you are more prepared, it's better to the transitioning. I also convinced the sports community, that sports management, that from my experience, I retired when I was 31. Why I can stay there long? Because I'm comfortable with my future. If I'm not comfortable with my future, I wouldn't retire. I retire with my bronze medal. But in China, usually we retire with gold medal, which is you're gonna have a better future. But it's a waste. If an athlete retire from a gold medal, the high point, you still can compete a couple of years. But because you want to worry about future, then you retire, which is a waste. So from my experience, because I'm comfortable with my future, then I can stay as long as I want, because sports, is very short for athletes. Something we need to also work on the early intervention with the young athletes. Let them understand we need to start early to think about your career for the future. Then it's help your sports career as well. And of course, more training, much better. And international cooperation, like today, we exchange ideas. We'll very much appreciate, because it's always better to have better ideas. Actually, I think I can say here. Actually, at the golden time, we also deliver the program in Taiwan as well, and we held the seminar for all Asia in Shanghai. Which is where city were. So it's a lot of cooperation, but nowadays there's less cooperation. So in the future, through this, maybe I can invite people, or you can invite me if you have have such a program. We'll be very happy to do so. That's pretty much I introduced. On top of that, I would like to introduce one thing. It's I didn't realize, but I very much appreciate after helping those athletes over 10 years. Start from a couple of years, there's many athletes come to us, say, oh, I become very emotional. They say, oh, how can we help? So they offer, oh, I'm becoming emotional. So they offer their help to our kids program. Okay. Okay. Why I'm so emotional. So before I'm here, we had a 1 week training for the we have the kids program. Sorry, we have a kids program that we have many kids program. We were in Hong Kong. Yeah, we went to one local school with that was over 10 athletes. They come voluntarily. We don't pay for anything. But there's program. We launched the program. They came in from all over China. We had a PE class for the school, and we also have a talk to champions. So for the young kids, they have discussion. We talk about our stories, and it was very fun. Yeah. Yes. So and a week ago, we launched the program helping the disabled kids in China through sports. We have a 30 spot because we have some funding for helping athletes. Then more than 200 athletes are signed. So it was very was very encouraging. Okay, I'm finished. Sorry.
No, thank you so much. Thank you, Yang. And you can see the benefit of giving back to those who give. You know,
I just came from a WADA meeting, so that's very encouraging. This meeting, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we were talking about enhancing lives for Olympians and elite athletes outside sport. You can see from the reaction how your life is enhanced if you help other people, and the foundations have been doing great work. So thank you very much for doing that.
We received more, actually. Thank you.
And that's what we hear from Olympians all over the world. They actually feel they get more when they give, that they actually get more back, yes. Which is really important. So, Patrick.
Yes.
Patrick. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen the education that's provided and the research that's being done at HKBU, how that empowers, and because you have a lot of athletes there, yes. And former athletes, how it gives back to them, how it empowers them, and the impact that they can have as a result.
Since 2005, Hong Kong BU has been nurturing the talented athletes, but during that time, there's no program helping them. So we are the first university very caring to those elite athletes, because when we look at the life journey, most of them, including the Olympians right here, they spend 15 to 20 years in that kind of training life, 7 or 6 in the morning, and then until the evening. So there's a huge contribution to the society and the countries. What we are trying to do is helping those elite athletes to prepare better at the end of their sport career, and then going into the new transition of their life, which is almost new to them in the past 15, 20 years. So in our university, we produce a talented athletics study program. In that time, our university invests our own material resources and manpower. But later on, the Hong Kong government start to look into this issue, because Hong Kong team has been doing much better for the China and the Hong Kong SAR. So in this case, the government are paying much more funding, especially after Tokyo 2020 in 2021. So right now, Hong Kong government putting a lot of resources to universities. Especially in our university, we start we call the talented athletics teaching program, and we provide not only the tuition and scholarships, but we provide one-on-one mentoring program, and also we provide a lot of flexibility of the studying period. So we will have more content about this scholarship we are going to launching in this year, and we start to admit the international Olympian in 25. So regarding the research, we had a Center for Olympic Studies about 15 years ago. So we work with the Hong Kong Olympic Committee in that area, and I'm taking care of all those research studies, especially during the 2008 Beijing Summer Games. This is a golden moment for China and China-Hong Kong. So we did a lot of researches, especially on the psychosocial athletics, psychosocial perspective for the athletes when they win or not winning. So when Yang talking about, we are having many celebrity star players here, but how about those? They didn't come up the medal table. This is the majority we want to take care, all right? So this is something, our mission and vision we are heading for. Of course, we are doing research at the same time. We want to produce much more social impact to the society, especially for that population. Under the WA, we have more than 100,000 members. And as Mr. Ray and Yang mentioned, they have been doing a lot of works and tasks really good, but good can be better and better. What our university want to do is, how can we give active value in this case, not only for the Hong Kong local elite athletes, but for the international opinions. So we are going to do more in this case. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Right. So obviously, when you compete on the biggest stage of all, which is the Olympics, it's a huge buzz. It's a great feeling. And then when you retire, the things that you've been doing since, I'll ask each of you in turn, is there one thing that you've done or something that you've learned that gives you a similar sort of feeling that makes you feel, yeah, it's been great. This is what sport has given to me. This is what I'm giving back. Is there just one thing you can say, this has enhanced my life? So I'll start with you, Daria.
For sure. I have friends around the world because of the sport. Sport also took me to various places around the world where I competed, and also gave me opportunity to be here today with this amazing Olympians, champions, and people who also want to give something back to the sport. So for sure, sport gives so much, and it's not only one thing, I think, at least in my opinion. And I think it's on us now, after we stop our career, to give something back and to learn others to do more, and that Olympian is not just a period of time, it's forever, but just you have now another role in your life.
Really okay, brilliant what they've got here. So Yang, same question. Well, I mean, we've already seen the emotion anyway.
Sorry.
No, that's great. What do you feel, one thing that sort of empowered you, made you feel good, giving the same feeling that you had when you were competing, since you've retired?
Actually, like her, she said, it's many things. I should say, when the difficulties comes, I start having this spirit of fighting, which is I learned from when I was athlete. So I'm normally a normal person. I'm a good mom. I'm normal. But when difficulty comes, I become fighter. So that's something I think I benefit from a sport. I benefit from a sport many things. I grew up from a very little poor town in China, back to 70s, 80s. And then sports really gave me the opportunity to see so much and to meet so many people and nice people, good, and to learn so much. So it's not only benefits one thing, just everything. So I really appreciate, because in Chinese we call, if you have luck, you need to pass on.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're gonna don't have no more luck. So that's my mom, also my family teach me. You're a lucky girl. You win the Olympic gold medal. It's something you have to pass on. That's how I start. Then I really receive all the luck. So I'm really appreciate.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Ryu, same question to you. What do you feel, since you've retired, has given you that same feeling of celebration, enjoyment, that feel-good factor inside?
Yeah, but this is a really difficult question, because I have seen so many positive things. I have learned so many things from the Olympic Games as a member of the IOC and part of the Olympic movement. And also I have been so much inspired by them. But one thing I would like to emphasize today, since my retirement, is teamwork and friendship. Because why I decided my a career transition as working in the international organization, because as I said that when I was a young athlete, no pain, no gain principles all the way, until you understanding all the way until the retirement. But one day I was a coach, then teaching my table tennis skill to our athlete. But she came to me suddenly. Then she has concern about the retirement because of the injury. Then I couldn't advise her to anything because I have same experience, only focus on my sports career. Even we could talk about the table tennis skill or tactic and so on. Then I could answer everything. But in the life, in another career, I didn't have any experience. That's why I decided to go to work as an international organization to learn more wider angle to provide my fellow athlete. That means I have learned from my athlete. Now I have a good team as IOC athlete commissions. I could friend. I've learned so many things from them. Then representing this, a forum. This is one thing I would like to emphasize, that teamwork and friendship is really important to your career. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much. So unfortunately, we're running out of time. So first of all, we have a very important announcement. We've been talking about. Yes, Patrick.
Okay, let me very, very quick supplement. Besides the fighting spirit and Mr. Wu said the team respect unity, I would like to inform the business sector that actually many people misunderstand the Olympian and elite athletes. They don't have much professional expertise, but actually, when we look into the athletic spirit, they're very positive thinking. They have the persistence. They can fight whenever they need to overcome the barriers. They're always positive thinking. So I would like to inform all the business sectors that their ability can be transferred into the real world. And our university, Hong Kong BU, will do this and head for this direction. Thank you.
I think university professors have that same spirit, don't you? So, we've been talking about benefits, and there's an important benefit that we'd like to talk about now. So Dr. Albert Chow, the Vice President of Technology and Learning at HKBU. I'll just hand you my microphone. It's probably the easiest thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, audience. Good morning. Here I have the pleasure to announce a scheme, to the world, I would say, because we're admitting athletes. We are trying to admit athletes from all over the world. This is an admission scheme and scholarship for Olympians. So if you don't mind, I'll borrow your remote control. So our target are international and mainland China Olympians or equivalent. So for all those OLYs in the world, so we are more than welcome. We welcome them to study at HKBU. They could be current, they could be retired, they could be nominated by the World Olympian Association, the Champion Foundation, or other Olympian-related organizations. So this is indeed for the whole world. And we have a few purposes to do this. This is for Mr. Ray's idea for developing their dual career. It is not just about preparation for their after competition life. It is the early development of their dual career. And indeed, as Patrick said, we have launched a similar program in Hong Kong, since 2005. And we see tremendous benefits that the athletes have brought to the local community, as well as the study life at the university. Other students are inspired by their teamwork, by their resilience and all that, and they bring a lot of value to the study life. And we would like to, let them pass it on, let them bring it forward to the community, to other students as early as possible, as Ms. Yang said. So we aim at undergraduate studies, but we are going to expand it to the postgraduate studies very, very soon. So why Hong Kong? Okay, the Olympians have a lot of choices. Why do they want to come to Hong Kong? We think we have a lot to offer. Okay, we are a East-West culture exchange center where the traditional Oriental culture and the Western culture blend together very well. We are an international innovation and technology center, and we have a very vibrant city life. This is the drone show, okay, at the harbor of Hong Kong during Chinese New Year, okay? And we have a big gateway to China. This is a very long bridge, okay, linking Hong Kong to Zhuhai, one of the cities in the Greater Bay Area, which is a up-and-coming, very vibrant economic center in the world. And then after they graduate, they have excellent graduate prospects. Hong Kong is having full employment. Actually, we are under-manpowered in almost every single aspect that you can name. And they have a lot of opportunities to work in the mainland, in the Southeast Asia, and all that. Okay, so there will be a lot of opportunities for them. Then why HKBU? They have a lot of choices as well. We are doing world-class sports science research and education, extensive network worldwide, diverse learning experience, and we have a very flexible curriculum, and in particular for the athletes. And we are ranked number 2 in the world, okay, on the SDG 4 quality education by the Times Higher Education. This is the most recent ranking, just released about a month ago, okay? So world-class sports science and research education. So you see our facilities there. We have a functional MRI machine, a neuroimaging center, all dedicated to research, and then a lot of facilities. And please come back tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow we are talking about sports science research, and we are investing very, very heavily, as Mike said, okay, on our sports research facilities. So please come back tomorrow. We will tell you more. So, and then diverse learning experience. We organize study tours, overseas service trips. They go to the mainland to visit the technology and other companies, and then internships. So Ms. Yang has talked about internship, Seung-min has talked about internship. And all these would be early opportunities for our athletes to engage in the community. So we have extensive worldwide network, 371 partners all over the world. And every year, we got more than 1,000 students studying full-time or on exchange. And Justin, sitting in the back, okay, is actually one of our students. He's from France. He studied 2 years at BU, and now he's back in France, and he's doing a double degree. He's going to get 2 degrees, okay, one from HKBU and one from Sciences Po in France. Now, the curriculum is highly, highly flexible. Students can take a major. They can choose a second major. The second major can be transdisciplinary and multiple, a combination of multiple disciplines or a single discipline. They can take concentration to go deeper in a certain major, and then they can take minor. Our student choice is not just about subject. It is about the learning pathway as well. They can take a more personalized pathway, or they can take a more structured pathway in case they pursue a professional qualification. And one big thing, okay, one very good thing about HKBU is that we have a campus in Zhuhai, the other end of that long bridge, okay, that you just saw. This is a joint venture with Beijing Normal University, and it was the first institution of this kind, jointly organized by a Hong Kong institution and a mainland institution. And all those students are our graduates because they receive the same education. The courses, the quality assurance at our Zhuhai campus are all done in Hong Kong. So the parchment, the certificate is exactly the same. We have a graduate over there, okay? She's actually a graduate in our Zhuhai campus. So the admission scheme for the Olympians, as I said earlier on, is for international and mainland China Olympians or equivalent. It is the first scheme in Hong Kong of this nature. We partner with the World Olympians organization. We support the transition of Olympians and Paralympians, and it is a tailor-made study scheme and learning support for them. what do we provide? We provide scholarship. It could be a full scholarship, a half scholarship, or a tuition fee waiver. And then it is renewable every year. After students complete a year, we will evaluate and then they can proceed. And there will be allowance for their living expenses as well. And it would be about 50,000 Hong Kong or around 6,000 euros per year. Okay. And we have experience in running these programs. So these are the scholarship awardees just this year. And we have a lot of experience supporting current athletes, okay? As a matter of fact, 3 of our students are competing in this Paris Olympics 2024. And the first one, Chang Ka-long, actually won the gold medal in the Tokyo Olympics 3 years ago. And then one student will participate in the Paris Paralympic Games. And then our students also won medals in the Asian Games, in the World University Games, and they are well supported by us. So our tailor-made learning support consists of small class teaching, one-on-one staff student support, recorded classes or online classes. All the lectures are recorded. The student athletes can watch the videos, accommodate their learning schedule to their training schedule, and then we provide one-on-one tutorial. Online learning support, and then we also provide them with a lot of opportunities to adapt to university life. A lot of them will train and compete outside Hong Kong, okay? But when they are in Hong Kong, we organize a lot of student activities for them on campus. So there will be, other than academic support, there is also non-academic mentoring support, psychological counseling, career planning, extension of the normal stay period. That is extremely important. Our teachers will work with the coaches to design the training and study schedules, okay, to fit so that they can actually develop their dual career while they're competing, they are a student. They can take 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, depending on the case, to complete this degree, so no rush, okay? Flexibility in study arrangement, online, hybrid, one-on-one, middle of the night, one-on-one tutoring, we do that as well. And then personalized academic advising and guidance. So this is what we are trying to do. So you see the QR code here for the admission scheme, and then HKBU. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And am I right in saying that all the learning is in English? Yes. Okay. Important to say that. Great. Thanks so much.
Even in the Zhuhai campus, everything is in English.
Great. Okay. So everything is in English, which is great. Right. So I'm sorry we've gone over time a little bit, but there was lots to talk about. So for some closing remarks, but I don't want to embarrass her. But I'd like to introduce Christine Chow, the Vice President of Administration, the Secretary of HKBU. Without her and her team, none of this would have been possible. They've done an amazing job to pull this together. So please come up here and make some closing remarks. But thank you so much for organizing everything.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for your team also. Great work. Thank you. So as we conclude today's remarkable event, we are deeply grateful for your presence and insights that have enriched our collective experience and propelled us towards new horizons of knowledge and collaboration. Our heartfelt appreciation, of course, go to our presenters and also our partners for their dedication and also expertise. Your passion made this event a platform for a meaningful dialogue and collaborative action. And tomorrow, Albert and also Mike has already given a heads up. So our panel will explore the intersection of science, technology, AI, and sports, discussing how to leverage technology and AI in sport, as well as technological advancement that safeguard the health and safety of athletes, and the ethical consideration in integrating scientific technological innovations into sports. So we look forward for your continued engagement as we explore all these important topics. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
thanks everyone. Well, I still sort of look like that. Anyway, there we go. So, hello everyone. Bonjour à tous. Daigaho. Today, it's science, technology, AI, and sport. This is the second panel discussion of HKBU in Paris's Journey to Excellence. And to kick it off with some few welcoming words, we have Professor Terence Lau, the Interim Chief Innovation Officer for HKBU.
Thank you, Mike. Olympians, WA members, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Hong Kong Baptist University, I would like to extend a very warm welcome again to the second day's panel discussion with the focus on science, technology, AI, and sports. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to World Olympian Association again, especially Mike, for having Hong Kong BU here. We are very honored to be here, actually. As a momentous occasion for us to host the event Journeys to Excellence, Hong Kong BU in Paris. We are pleased to bring to you the university cutting-edge initiative in sports developments, as well as the insight on sports, science and innovation through the panel discussion by our renowned speakers today. HKBU is determined to be a global center of excellence in sports and healthcare, and our strategic research excellence in healthcare, art tech, AI, and also artificial intelligence can support the transdisciplinary research initiatives. So these all can be blended together to come into a new cutting-edge research deliverables that enhance sports development. We also commit to turn research excellence into real-world application, including those for sports. For example, biotechnology and Chinese medicine can enhance, can maintain facility resilience and also athletes' health. And AI and IoT to advance athlete trainings to enhance performance as well. And also the cinematic technology to elevate the sport experience, and also can provide good tools for athletes, trainers, and even the participants. We are delighted to showcase some of the groundbreaking technology upstairs. So if you have time after the seminars, you can visit the room and we can share with you what we have been doing and we were trying to do. And if you have any new idea, also feel free to talk to us, talk to Professor Yanis, and you could also turn your idea into realities. And finally, I would like to thank all of the speakers and all of you attending today's panel discussion. We hope you enjoy the program today, and also most importantly, the most exciting Olympic Games in Paris. Thank you very much.
So I was remiss in not welcoming you to OLY House, the home for Olympians away from home. This is where they gather during the games, watch the games, meet each other. Met with some people yesterday who hadn't seen each other for 15 years. They were so excited to be reconnected, and that's one of the things that we do at the World Olympians Association. And this beautiful building is the home of the Castapon Bank Group, and we have to thank them as well, and the French Olympians for having us here and hosting us. So the first speaker today is, I'm not used to being this formal, is Dr. Borja Muñiz-Pardos. He's a senior research fellow and lecturer at the University of Zaragoza. Thank you, yeah, I do that well. And his research focuses on human performance. Borja. No, you can sit in the middle.
Okay.
And then you can put one of those microphones down.
Okay, so I need to sit down, right? Okay. Oh, sorry. Thank you all for being here and giving me the chance to come. Thank you, Hong Kong Baptist University, for allowing me being here and share this topic, this very interesting, at the same time as a controversial topic that I'm sure will bring some interesting opinions at the end.
First of all, I want to just highlight I don't have any conflict of interest. It's just our views from a romantic sports scientist. So I just want to highlight that. So the title of this talk is the same title as an article that we published 2 months ago. And you may be able to appreciate that one of the authors, and we are very honored, is a very well-known athlete. And in this article, we talk about 2 technological advances, mainly. One of them is the advanced footwear technology that you can see on the left, and the other one is the wave light technology that you can see on the right, and are those LED lights that you can see in the inner part of the track. To illustrate the controversy and also the interest in the scientific community about these topics, on the left you can see our viewpoint published, but 1 month later Professor Joyner and Wilkins published another viewpoint opposing to our views, and the Journal of Applied Physiology launched a call for letters. So there are more than 20 comments on each one of them. So if you are very interested in this, it's open access, so you can access to this and read more in more detail. So everything started with the marathon. So basically in the Olympics 2016, we started to see this shoe technology that you can see in these athletes that are characterized by containing a carbon fiber plate within the midsole and also a very reactive foam in such a midsole. And then, because the main purpose of this was to go under 2 hours in the marathon, we saw several attempts, and finally in 2019 we saw how this was made by the greatest Eliud Kipchoge, and with using different prototypes of shoe along this path. This transferred and was extrapolated to official races as well and to amateur races. So we witnessed how this technology broke records. Well, the athletes did, but the technology helped. And especially from 2016, as we can see here, the top 20 season best times from that time to the following years fell in 10K, in half marathon, and in marathon, in both males and females. The reason why this technology helps is basically because it affects the running economy of the runners. You will be able to see now how 2 athletes are running at the same intensity, but one of them is clearly consuming less energy. If we had the chance to measure the oxygen uptake of these 2 runners running at the same speed, it would be clear that the African runner would consume less oxygen. So this is basically how the shoe technology affects the athlete. So it makes the athlete more efficient. The first paper, or the first research published about this was Hoek Kamer's group, and they demonstrated a 4% benefit in the running economy. So in the video we saw in the slide before, it made 4% better running at different speeds when using this shoe when compared to other shoes. After this seminal research, many others followed, and in summary and on average, we could see a 4% running economy benefit, longer strides provided by this shoe, longer contact times, and on average, a 2% improved performance. But when looking at this into more detail, because this is not as clear as we can read in this slide, last year we published a paper and we could appreciate a large individual variability. We see in red the negative values is benefit from the shoe, and the positive values are impairment as provided by the shoe in both world-class and amateur runners. And we can see there is a large variability. This is probably due to a lack of familiarization, but our research group, we are trying to understand the factors influencing this variability. So I cannot reveal anything yet, but we are studying. But the main message is that some athletes are benefiting so much from the technology, and some others are not benefiting or even impairing. So And we, in summer 2020, we saw how this technology went onto the track as well. So we started to see how records were broken and personal bests were approaching in the track as well. And here you have the two great records of Joshua Cheptegei breaking Kenenisa Bekele's records in 10,000 and 5,000 meters. And just to illustrate this over time, we see here the amount of athletes running elite times in middle and long distance running. What are elite times? So as you can see here, in the bottom, elite times are those times considered for each distance according to World Athletics. And we can see that from 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19, the amount of athletes running elite times were very consistent. 2020, the number of competitions were reduced due to COVID, but then 2021, after COVID and after the introduction of super spikes in the track, the amount of runners performing elite times increased dramatically, and this is males and this is females. So this illustrates the great benefit of the shoes in only 2 years, from 2019 to 2021. So researchers tried to explain this, and they highlight that these records were because of new training methodologies, the physiology of athletes, drafting, pacing, but the factors that really explained such a drop and such a step change in only 2 years can only be technology. And we highlighted this in a later viewpoint in which we claim that this is technologically driven and not physiology or other factors that haven't changed as much in such a few years. But there is another factor, and this is the second and final factor I will highlight, that can explain these records. So we can see here this image, this video, with lights in the inner part of the track, and this can be programmed at a specific pace. So the athlete can literally set a very stable pace by following the light. I will just play a short video illustrating why World Athletics, in this case, introduced this technology.
What is it that we're trying to do for particularly people that come to the stadium for the very first time and may know very little about our sport? You need to create a connection, and the key connection is understanding.
Every race has a story, a world record, but it also can be a stadium record or a national record. We want to have the spectators back to the stadium and feel what's going on in the stadium.
The Dutch have been determined that this race be as accessible as possible for people to watch.
Afgezien van de Britse tempomaakster Laura Wakeman is er ook een elektronische haas. Dat is de zogenoemde wavelight. Het is de bedoeling dat Hassan in de rode zone blijft lopen.
I think that pace lights are actually a very good way of blending further understanding and excitement, a little bit of jeopardy, and allowing the world to see just how good our competitors are.
Paces can do their perfect race plan, which brings us closer to stadium records, world records. It doesn't matter. The day before a competition, we have the kids clinics. They can chase the light and see how fast Usain Bolt can run 100 meters. And especially the young generation, we like to have to the stadiums again. We want to have a full stadium packed of fans.
Okay, so just to highlight why this would enhance performance, we know from many years ago that if an athlete is able to maintain an even and consistent pace throughout a race, this and minimize that acceleration at acceleration, this would improve performance. And as it's highlighted, more successful athletes can maintain a more even pace, and this is characterized by better athletes when compared to worse athletes. So there is an intrinsic capability that a good athlete must have to compete and perform well. In here, we can see and compare the 10,000 meter record of Bekele and Joshua Cheptegei, and this is the time per lap during the 10,000 in gray and black and the 5,000 in blues. So we can see how Bekele was not able to maintain an even pace, Basically, not because he was a worse athlete, because he only had the feedback of the time every lap when he went onto the finish line, and he get the feedback. But nevertheless, Joshua Cheptegei, the consistency of his pace was remarkable and questionable from a human merit, because he was within a second for all the laps, and similar to what we know as a Pac-Man following a light. Finally, I will finish with some other measures. I am not, just to highlight, I am not against technology. I love technology, but just the responsible use of technology, especially in competition, when protecting the fairness and integrity of sport and athletes. And this is just a criticism. So the last, so World Athletics will also trial a new jump takeoff. So you can see on the picture the popular table takeoff in the long jump, but this may be replaced with a takeoff zone, not a table. So this means that the athlete will jump from anywhere, and the jump, so every jump would count. So basically the running part of the jump, and that ability for the jumper will not be required from them, which again is changing how the sport and this is, athletic discipline works. So the concluding remarks, if you want to read a little bit more in detail, the last word on Viewpoint will be published soon. But the recent records are greatly influenced by technology. Some technological advances artificially augment the athlete's natural performance capability, and this must be considered by fairness organization and sports organization. And we suggest that records performed and their technology assisted should be somehow differentiated from those records performed without technology, following an asterisk or some way of differentiation. Finally, I want to thank you all for being here. Again, Hong Kong Baptist University, Adidas for sponsoring our studies for shoe technology, and the World Olympian Association for hosting this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Borja. Stay there. A couple of questions. So, this technology is expensive still. Some people have access to it, or some elite athletes do because they are sponsored or because they can afford it. Others don't necessarily have access to the technology. Would you consider that cheating or unfair advantage, or is that just the way the game goes?
Thank you, Mike, for the question. This was definitely an issue when Nike was the only brand that had this kind of technology. And but then all the brands now can access to that technology. That's on one side. But now about the price, it is true that the sponsored athletes get access to this. So when talking about fairness in elite sport, I would say that all elite athletes have access now to this technology. So I don't think there is this issue nowadays. It used to be when Nike only owns this technology. But still, because there is a great inter-individual variability, and some athletes are still benefiting more than others. So there is in some way some unfairness in this regard. But with the price and access, I would say that not anymore.
Okay, great. What about health and safety? Does this technology make it safer, less prone to injury for the athletes, or because they're going faster, does it mean that they are more likely to be injured?
Thank you, great question again. So we don't know yet. We are doing a study in the University of Zaragoza, also studying the longitudinal effect of wearing this technology on injury prevalence, etc. We only know what we hear from the athletes. They wear a lot of this technology because they feel less tired and they injured less. That's what they say, but we don't know scientifically what happened, basically.
Okay, and final question. For elite athletes, understand the benefits, but for someone like me who's a recreational runner, is it worth spending the money to have these shoes or not?
Okay, I think it depends how competitive you are. Not very. But on another side, what I have witnessed is that some recreational runners transitioning to these shoes very promptly without correct familiarization, they tend to get injured. So I would say that you can try, but not changing from not wearing to wearing 70 kilometers a week the next week. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I don't do 70K a week anymore. But still, thank you so much. Right, our next speaker is Dr. Carl James, research assistant and professor at HKBU. He's an applied scientist who has worked with many elite and also amateur athletes from many different sports. He specializes in physiology and the monitoring of endurance. So, Carl, where are you? There you go.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you again for the invitation to talk at this event. A real pleasure and honour to be part of this. So when we talk about performance in the heat, this is not a new topic. If I take a fairly crude indicator of PubMed publications listed on PubMed in the last, well, since 1913, we can see that in the last decade alone, we've got around 5,000 papers that are related to the topic of exercise and heat. And these are related to topics such as understanding heat illness, heat adaptation of athletes, optimal nutrition for performing in the heat, also educating athletes. However, when we look at performances,
I knew if I would stop or sit down, that would be the end of it. I just was determined to make it to that finish line.
From 1984 through to 2018. Through to 2021. Even in the Olympic Games, at the last Tokyo Olympics, in the 10,000 metre final, there was an athlete suffering a heat illness in the final. And just a few weeks ago, at the Singapore T100 triathlon event, there was an athlete who won the race, collapsed at the finish line, and was being treated for heat illness as they crossed the finish line. So it's evident that in over 30 years, this problem is not one that we've solved. It's also not a problem that's going away. And when we talk more specifically about triathlon, which is what I'll talk about a little bit more in this talk, heat illness remains the predominant contributor to medical events in both short and long distance triathlons. What's also really relevant, and particularly when we reflect on it, we're here at the time of the Olympics, and in terms of the Olympic ideals of participation and inclusivity, sport for all, is that events like triathlon actually often host both elite athletes and amateur athletes on the day of competition. We know here that in Paris, for the marathon, there will be both in the morning there will be the elite race, and there will also be an amateur race on the same day. So it's essential that we actually don't just look for solutions that protect elite athletes, but we also have a responsibility as sports scientists to actually understand and try to protect all participants in sport. So World Triathlon, like a lot of international sporting federations, use a 5-flag system to try to reduce the risk of heat illness in their events. And this is based on the wet bulb globe temperature measured at the event. And the important point is that when the conditions rise above 30 WBGT, that's when event modifications kick into action. Now this might involve rescheduling the event, or in particular, this might mean that the event distance actually reduces. So for example, an Olympic distance triathlon in extreme weather conditions might actually shorten to a sprint distance. Now, this is pretty effective in terms of preventing widespread instances of heat illness in extreme weather conditions, but it's certainly not preventing all instances, as those videos just demonstrated. And this is for a myriad of reasons, but ultimately it boils down to the individual variability in us as individuals, and certainly across elite athletes in terms of heat production, heat dissipation, clothing that can't be factored in when we only look at environmental conditions alone. So evidently, it's preferable to monitor the heat strain that an athlete is actually experiencing. But this is logistically, financially, and conceptually challenging, particularly when you've got large numbers of individuals on a start line. Furthermore, we don't necessarily know, the science isn't there at the moment to accurately predict heat illness across a range of different individuals. However, what's really important to note is that in the last IOC position stand on performance, for endurance performance in the heat, the IOC have actually identified a potential role for technology to be used in competition, and they've identified that sports federations can at least consider this and should explore it. And that's what we're starting to do now in this project with World Triathlon, who we're really honoured to have worked with them across a few different events now. And the purpose of this project is really to explore and research the use of real-time wearable technology during competitions to try and reduce and or prevent the reduction of heat illness in triathletes. So there's a number of aims of this project. Firstly, it's to demonstrate feasibility. Can technology actually protect the health of athletes? Aligned with that, we need to collect a lot of normative data to actually test the existing regulations, and some of the data that's collected might be able to inform rule updates. Alongside that, we need to determine what are the sensors that athletes should be wearing, how many of them, which parts of the body, what exactly are we monitoring. For example, there's some research states that we should look beyond core temperature alone, that we should pair core temperature with skin temperature to understand the thermal strain an individual is experiencing. There's also research emerging that looking at an individual's gait might be an important predictor in predicting heat illness, particularly the gait variability as an individual starts to sway and their running biomechanics start to break down as they are getting extremely hot. And this might be one predictor before an individual collapses. Undoubtedly, there are also likely to be markers in terms of people's sweat, in terms of their cardiovascular response, that might also play a role here. So we need to look at this and understand this. We need to pair the physiological data with the environmental conditions. This, at the moment, as I said, is the prevailing way that risk is assessed in a lot of endurance sports. So in triathlon, they compete across a very large distance. There are also 3 exercise modalities. So understanding the microclimate across that whole event course is really, really important. So we're also looking at the number of meteorological stations needed. And lastly, and most importantly, we need to get all this information into some sort of user-friendly fashion. It's got to be actionable information, otherwise why are we collecting it? So we need to get simplified, accurate information to the hands of those who are making decisions. For example, into the hands of medical personnel at events. And one example of this might be a simplified traffic light system showing risk prediction of a group of athletes during an event. So to give a very quick snapshot of the work that we've done, We've done 4 events so far with World Triathlon with both para athletes and able-bodied athletes, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the event that we hosted, that was hosted in Hong Kong, which was a sprint triathlon event, so the reduced distance that I touched upon earlier, in March of this year, and this was by far our biggest event of this particular stream of our work. Other point just to mention that in Hong Kong, on the same day, we had amateur athletes, we had the Hong Kong elite athletes, and then we had the World Cup athletes. So we had a real spectrum of different athlete standards. To very quickly introduce the technology that we're using, because this is already featured quite widely in a few publications that have gone out, and there's a QR code there that should link to one of the latest papers which gives more deep information on this. But essentially, the sensors that the athletes are using are shown at the bottom here. That's a telemetric pill on the left with the skin temperature sensor, and then there's foot sensors on the 2 shoes which are giving indications of biomechanics. All of these sensors, which on the main schematic are shown in yellow, are then provided in real time through networking capabilities, which are shown in green, and this provides this information to any end user on a phone, tablet, or laptop that's got access to the dashboard and connected to the internet. So in this example, athletes' heart rate, core temperature, skin temperature, and running biomechanics are being monitored. So going back to Hong Kong, and we really saw the perfect example of why this sort of monitoring is needed. What we experienced in March was a totally unexpected heat wave. Just a few days before the event, it was predicted, there was even discussion amongst officials of whether the athletes might even have to wear a wetsuit for the event. And we know that climate is going to continue to be more and more unpredictable with climate change. Just to put that into perspective, this race actually fell on the hottest day in March recorded since 1884. It also presented the perfect storm of risk factors. It was the hottest day on record for March. It was the opening race of the season, so athletes didn't have any prior acclimatization. And what you can see here on the graph is the lead up in the 2 weeks before the race. And then on panel B, you can see the hourly temperature on the day of the race. So although the World Cup and elite athletes went off earlier in the morning, the amateur athletes actually performed in red flag categories, in red flag conditions through the afternoon. So to very quickly introduce what we observed, what you can see here are the core temperature, or the peak core temperature observed by all the athletes. And on the left, you've got the World Cup females, and this is in order that the races occurred during the day. You've got the World Cup athletes, then the elite athletes, and then the amateur athletes on the right. And it's important to observe that in the cohort that we instrumented, we didn't observe any heat illness. There were other instances of heat illness among the 550 athletes on the day, but of the 66 that we instrumented, we didn't have any within that group. But what we did see were some really severe responses. And remember, this is within a sprint distance triathlon. So we had 2 individuals presenting with a core body temperature of over 41 degrees, which for context, most laboratories around the UK do not allow you, around the world, excuse me, do not allow you to exercise beyond a core temperature of 39.5, maybe 39.8, maybe even 40 degrees. So some of these observations would never be found in the laboratory, which is another reason for one of the importance of monitoring athletes in the field. What that tells us, or allows us to see, is that actually we don't see any differences in the peak core temperature across different standards of athletes. And that's really important in terms of if you're trying to present predictive models for different standards of athletes. Actually, the peak core temperature isn't changing in this particular event. But what we did see was a really large inter-individual variability. So reinforcing the importance of actually monitoring the individual rather than being able to predict a group response. And just very quickly, in terms of the biomechanics, we also saw really clear differences across these athlete categories. So 10 to 20% differences in stride length, in contact time, in stride frequency. So in terms of normative data for biomechanics, we need to build up that base of normative data to actually be able to understand what is normal for different standards of athletes if we're going to understand what is abnormal. So to conclude, we've made some important steps towards that proof of concept with monitoring athletes to try and prevent heat illness. But certainly logistical and the financial challenges of doing this work remain. Conceptually, we've collected some normative data, but much more is needed if we're to actually produce robust heat illness policies and or predictive warning systems for different standards of athletes across different locations, different race distances. This was only the sprint event, and at different times of the year. In terms of using our data to actually assess the current regulations, it was a really important observation that we're actually getting athletes with core temperatures above 40 degrees under a blue flag scenario. So it begs the question of whether distance reduction under the red and black flag conditions is actually a safer option than Olympic distance, continuing with Olympic distance. And just looking to the future, it's evident that extreme weather and technology sensor development are both going to continue, but there are also ethical challenges. Borja's obviously introduced some really nice examples, but there's also ethical challenges with this work as well. What do we do when athletes present with what we consider to be really dangerous body temperatures or dangerous information coming through on a dashboard? How do we act on that? Do we act on it? Does the athlete give permission to act on that? And lastly, how to actually roll this out. If we are going to try to protect, sometimes in the video I showed at the start, the voiceover from the athlete was basically saying she was not going to stop. She was going to continue irrespective. So there might be a role that actually we need to mandate usage rather than leaving up to the individual athletes, particularly if athletes perceive that wearing a sensor or wearing a smartwatch might place them at a disadvantage in terms of the the added weight or comfort. Maybe actually international sporting federations may need to mandate the usage. So thank you very much for listening. Happily.
Great, thanks so much. So, as we all know, technology advances quickly. The technology will get smaller, better, cheaper. And that question you raised at the end, I want to ask you where you stand on that. Do you think there will come the day when everyone taking part, because the health and safety of the athlete or the participant has to be the most important thing, can you see the day where it's mandated they have to have this technology once it becomes cheap enough and small enough and good enough, and that in the rules, if the doctor says you've got to stop, that they have to stop? Are you in favor of that? And if so, how do you see that working?
So I'll try to answer it in two parts. Firstly, I'm definitely in favor of safer sport, and I think we have to move with the times. And I think when the technology is available, then we need to make every effort to actually use that in terms of protecting people who are participating in sport. We want to run a series of studies with mass marathon participants, and evidently the sort of comprehensive technology solution that I presented today isn't logistically or financially feasible to roll out to everybody. So I think we need to understand what technologies there are, and maybe more and more are going to come in the future, that are financially viable, but they're surrogates for the important metrics so that we can actually use that information. And this doesn't necessarily mean that we interfere with the performance or we're withdrawing people, but it certainly means that we get a heads up and that we can prepare. So a medical team can use that information to strategically place their resources, or they can move people towards that position. So I think we have an obligation to do it. In terms of the second part, which was around, sorry, just repeat the second part for me, Mike.
Yeah, that was, we'll come back to the second part in a second, because I want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So, the one we saw at the beginning, who was not going to give up, was going to make it to the finish line, most important day of her life as an athlete. If you were the doctor and we had the technology, would you have pulled her out?
No. Because I think...
So why, sorry for the question, so why, if we have that technology, you wouldn't pull her out? If you think she is in risk, but her decision is to finish?
I think, well, I think, first of all, it's a very good example, because although I would argue that actually conceptually the science isn't there to accurately predict based off data, in that example, evidently the athlete was in distress. But I think that's a wider argument for sport and for sports federations. I don't think that's just limited to medicine. It's an ethical question around, do people give, particularly when it's their livelihood, do people give permission for them to actually, was she still capable of making that decision? What right do we have to overrule the athlete in that moment? Because her mortgage, her children's education, everything could be linked towards, athletes' contracts depend on medals quite often. So,
of course, but if an athlete then becomes severely damaged, as it were, their health is damaged for the rest of their lives, you have to take that into account. So, look, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. This is, as you say, it's a big question, and it's something that sport has to deal with. Do you think that the rules need to be changed, maybe distances shortened, or they say, look, no matter what the pressure is commercially to run something at a certain time for a bigger TV audience, that you shouldn't run something at 12 noon when you know it's going to be 35 degrees outside?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that was something that we saw in Hong Kong. Although the snapshot of data that I showed didn't show too much difference between the lesser trained athletes and the higher trained athletes, in reality there's a host of physiological differences that indicate that lesser trained individuals would be more at risk. And that's why the ACSM guidelines make a distinction between, based on training status, for how events should modify. And in Hong Kong, it was the amateur athletes that went out and performed in the heat of the day. So for sure, I think it's a discussion that needs to be had. And I think data is the way to have that discussion. That discussion needs to be data-led, which is why I think we need to continue collecting data from these sorts of events, so that it can actually be, those sorts of arguments can be put forward in a very objective and transparent way against relevant financial needs as well for the sport.
Okay, so let's finish off with a nicer question, an easier question. What's been the feedback from the athletes and the coaches that you've monitored at these events?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the athletes really like it. They train to peak at certain competitions. So monitoring during training isn't necessarily indicative of their full potential. When they compete, that's where they're going all in, which is also why it's also the most risky time. So athletes, in our experience, certainly the athletes in Hong Kong, they like technology, they want more of it, they want closer integration with scientists to help explain that data. And I think the onus is on us to make sure that we understand the nuances, sex differences, age differences across different locations, different combinations of sensors, to be able to give athletes the feedback that they want and need to actually optimize their training, because athletes will train all over the world. They don't just train at home all year round, they're going all over the place. So understanding how different data changes at altitude, in hot environments, cold environments is really important. So yeah, as scientists, we've got our work cut out to make sure that we can continue to actually help them.
And I'm wondering if you bring this technology to market or to the sport, whether you could pair it both with a core body temperature monitor and a blood glucose monitor, so you know is it overheating or is it a drop in glycogen?
Yeah, 100%. And I think our approach in terms of real-time monitoring has been to start with validated sensors and start with what we know works, and we build from there. But the system that we're using is sensor agnostic, so it has the ability to bring in metabolic sensors, sweat sensors. So glycogen is definitely, blood glucose monitoring is definitely something that's in our pipeline to be working with in the very, very near future, actually.
But the rules need to change. UCI, for example, banned the use of blood glucose monitors.
So that's the point I was going to make. So the message for international federations, national federations, event owners is get on board with the technology. The health and safety of the athletes and the participants, whether they're elite or amateur, has to be the most important thing, and technology is the way forward. It's not a biased opinion, it's
just
a fact.
a very, quick, ideas. I don't know whether it works. You have a very good system to monitor the temperatures in the athletes, but wondering we can have a more proactive ways to decrease the temperature, like some sort of gel that can apply on the skins of the athletes that can help heat dissipations, like those for burn, in medical sectors, that may help decrease the temperature during the competition. I don't know whether it's an idea that we can explore as well.
Yeah, I think there's, we've done quite a lot of work around pre-cooling and cooling during races. The challenge is actually because the metabolic heat production, the exercise intensity of the athletes is so high that localized cooling doesn't necessarily reduce the core body temperature. You really have to cool a large area of the skin in order to get that heat reduction in the body.
Whole body with
Yeah, so that's why the cooling stations that you see are actually potentially quite effective, because that water cools a large area of the skin surface, so you can dissipate heat quite effectively. But then when we go back to an Asian climate, those don't work so well because we have a very high humidity in the air. So the water pressure gradient to be able to evaporate that sweat just isn't there. So that's why strong electric fans and convective cooling, the air conditioning units are so effective in making us feel better in Asia, but it's not feasible to line an entire 42 kilometer. So I think, just to summarize, like going back, I think we have to continue to educate the athletes around it. We have to prepare them optimally in terms of heat adaptation, heat acclimation, acclimatization, in terms of hydration, and then we have to do what we can to monitor them safely.
So entrepreneurs out there, and also research institutions, something that can be looked into. If you can find a way of cooling everyone down that works everywhere, I think we could all come to your yacht and enjoy your hospitality. So, Carl, James. So our next speaker is Dr. James Seto. She's the team leader in the Murdoch Children's Research Institute. Her current research is focused on the ACTM3 gene, the so-called gene for speed. She's also an honorary fellow at the University of Melbourne, where she lectures on genetics and sport. So, Jane.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much to Hong Kong BU, to the World Olympian Association, and especially to Professor Muñiz-Pardos for inviting me to participate in this panel. So my background, and I'm a medical scientist by trade, and as you can see, I'm based at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute in Melbourne. And my expertise is in genetics of human muscle performance, both in the general population and in elite athletes. And I also work in the genetics of inherited muscle diseases that affect both children and adults. So how do we know what we don't know? Like, in order to approach this, we can employ something called a hypothesis-free approach, which is really just fancy scientific speak for the ability to look at large data sets with no assumptions. And omics is a great way of doing that. So omics is basically just a broad umbrella term for the different ways we can look at biological changes and variations at different levels. So we can look at changes in the genetic level, so that's called a transcriptomics. We could look at changes in proteins, so that's phosphoproteomics or proteomics. Or we can look at changes in small molecules like metabolites, so using metabolomics. So for those of you who may be a bit confused over what genes and proteins are, this is kind of like a helpful analogy. So you can think of genes as a recipe, and DNA and RNA would be like the words within the recipe. And if you're really careful about following the recipe, you end up with your prescribed product. And since we're in France, I thought a croissant. So you'll end up with a protein. And omics is essentially the ability to look at all the genes and protein changes, so global changes in your body, all at the same time. And it also gives you that ability to look at levels, so you can measure levels and changes in both genes and proteins, and you can compare that between different groups. So with that in mind, we wanted to see how we could apply omics into this problem of improving anti-doping detection. And we specifically wanted to look at, to see if we can help improve the steroid module. And this is because of this study that came out 11 years ago in 2013. And it was a really important finding, and it really rocked, I think, the sports science world. And why? So the outcomes of this study showed that short-term use of androgenic steroids can actually lead to long-term biological benefits in skeletal muscle. So what these researchers did is that they had rats that they treated with testosterone propionate for about 2 weeks, and these steroid-treated rats are shown here in red. And on the right, you can see this is the cross-sectional area, so it's the size of the muscle fibers or muscle cells. And you see that steroid-treated rats have bigger muscle cells. And then on the left, it measures the number of myonuclei. So nuclei is where DNA is stored. And you can see on the right here the staining of muscle cross-section. So nuclei are stained in blue. And on the top, with the top row of images is all the steroid-treated rats. So what these researchers did after this was they allowed the testosterone to wash out of the system of these rats for 3 weeks. So you can see on the very top of part A of testosterone, see that the levels in the serum has completely gone back down to 0 within the 3-week kind of washout period. And you can see that after washout, that rats that have been treated with steroids, their muscle fibers cross-sectional area has gone back down to basically baseline levels, to the same as control rats. But the number of myonuclei is still retained. The researchers then performed an overload experiment. So this is a surgical method to force the muscles to grow and to get big. And what is really interesting is that when you then look at these rats that had previously been exposed to testosterone, that these rats are able to significantly increase the size of their muscle fibers compared to controls. So, like I said, this was huge news at the time, and I think there were a lot of review papers that called for, we need to change the penalties for athletes that have been caught doping. They deserve a lifelong ban. But as we all know, none of that happened. There was a lot of talk and then nothing. And it's likely because this was the only study that has looked at this phenomenon. So in the last 11 years, there's been no other well-powered study that has tried to replicate this observation, neither in animal models or in humans. So this is where we come in. We've been very fortunate to have received some funding from World Anti-Doping. I think that the forms were literally signed a few days ago. We are looking at the mechanisms and biomarkers of short-term anabolic steroid use to see how that influences the long-term effects in muscle and in serum, both in mice and in humans. And as you can see, so not only, this is a collaborative work, so not only are we collaborating with Professor Yannis Pitsilades at Hong Kong Baptist University, we're also collaborating with the University of Rome with Professor Fabio Vigozzi. And I think the idea of this is we're bringing together expertise from multiple different institutions and also from different backgrounds. So really bringing together expertise in sports science and sports human exercise performance, as well as expertise in mouse modeling and genomics. So we aim to not only just replicate what was done back in 2013, we want to see if we could enhance that study and broaden the scope of that study, and also apply the new modern technologies that we have now 10 years down the track. One phase, or one arm of our study is the mouse model, and the second arm is to replicate what we find in the mouse in human participants. So because of time, I'm only going to be focusing on the work we've been doing in the mouse model, so in phase 1. And so in our lab, we've optimized a way to deliver testosterone. So we use dihydrotestosterone, which is a very potent form of testosterone. We've figured out how to implant that and also make sure that there is delivery at steady state of this hormone in our mice. So mice are receiving either empties or implants containing DHT. And our experimental design for our mouse arm is quite similar to the 2013 study. So we have a period in which we give our animals either a DHT or a blank implant, and then we remove it and allow the testosterone to wash out of their system for 3 weeks. And then we challenge these animals with resistance training. So we picked resistance training because overload procedures are unnatural in some ways, definitely unnatural, but with resistance training, by using that, we're able to resemble strength training that typically occurs in humans. We do 2 different levels of training. We have moderate training and also vigorous training. So moderate training is 3 days a week. Vigorous is 5 days per week. So in addition to looking at the outcome measures of changes in fiber size and myonuclei number, we're also collecting data on strength and muscle fatigue. And so we look at grip strength. We're collecting grip strength data throughout the experiment. And at the very end, we also do an in situ muscle function test. So this is a muscle physiology test that we can do in the mouse muscles within the mice. And then at the very end of that, we harvest the tissues so we can do these downstream analyses such as omics. So I just want to show you an example of what we do in the lab with our training. So I'm like a little coach for mice. So here we've got one of our mice. So we have attached a weight to their tail. And mice actually really love climbing. So there's very little prompting or encouragement that we need to do to make it climb up a ladder. And right now this mouse is carrying 2 times its body weight. And they can actually go up to 4 times, I think, 3 to 4 times. And the investigator here is Dr. Giscard Lima, who's been phenomenal and just so important in our project. So our experiment is actually really quite complicated because we've got many different experimental groups. We have actually a total of 10 different groups. And it may seem like it's an overkill, but it's because we have a lot of questions we want to ask. And so, for example, with the control groups, by comparing the different groups 5, 7, and 9, we can ask specifically what are the effects of this modality of resistance training. When we compare in groups 1 to 2, we can ask what are the acute effects of testosterone treatment. When we compare groups 1 to 2 with our washout group, we can then ask what are the effects of testosterone, and are they still present 3 weeks after we stop treatment. And then if we then also add in groups 5 and 6, we can ask if the effects of DHT are still present after 11 weeks. And finally, when we compare our training groups with our sedentary controls, we can ask if prior DHT exposure actually affects the response to exercise training. And so we've actually completed about 90% of the exercise training now, and so we've already collected a lot of the data and also some tissues for our downstreams analysis. And so I just wanted to give you just a taste of some of the data that we have. And here is the muscle mass data. So this is the mass of the spinalis muscle. So we collect many different muscles from all over the body. But specifically, we are really interested in the spinalis because it's in close proximity to where we place the implant. And it's actually the muscle, it's, as the name suggests, it's the muscle that's on either side of your spine. Their spine, not your spine. So you can see here that the mass of the control blanks across the board is fairly similar. There is not really all that difference in that 17-week protocol overall. But when we look at the muscle mass of the DHT-treated animals after 6 weeks of treatment, we can see that there is significant increases in muscle mass. When we look at the washout group, so this is 3 weeks after the testosterone has been washed out of their system, we see that the muscle mass is still significantly higher, but it's lower than what it was in the acute phase. And finally, by the 11 weeks of washout, the muscle mass of the DHT exposed mice and the sedentary controls are just no difference at all. However, when we look at the muscle mass of the trained animals compared to the blanks, we can see that exercise training significantly increases the muscle mass of the mice that have been exposed to DHT, both under the vigorous training and in the moderate training modalities. So our results are consistent with what has been published in the 2013 paper that shows that prior treatment with DHT significantly increases muscle mass in response to exercise training. Now, so we were really gratified to see this because the whole point of this exercise is so that we could look at differences in biomarkers. And so our next steps in our phase 1 of our mouse study is to send the serum off from Aspect to make sure that we have indeed washed out all the testosterone in our training groups and in our washout groups. Muscles that we collect we're gonna put that under fiber analysis. So we're gonna look at changes in size and myonuclei number, and we'll also look at changes in proteins in specific pathways using this technique called Western blot. Both serum and muscles are also, of course, going to be sent off for omics analyses. So just to show you what fiber analyses is going to look like. So this is a technique that we've streamlined in our laboratory. There's actually a lot of information here. So this is a muscle cross-section. There are different types of muscle fibers. You get fast fibers, which are really important for sprint and power performance, and then you get slow fibers or type 1 fibers that are important for endurance performance. So here, the slow fibers are shown in green. We used antibodies that are specific for these fiber types, and then there's 2 different types of fast fibers as well. There's 2B and 2A. And then actually there's also 2X, but we don't have an antibody for that, so it's in there somewhere. And then the nuclei is shown in yellow. And so this is what I'll be doing when I get back from Paris. And we'll be doing that analysis in about 100 different samples. So hooray. And also, of course, we're doing the omics analyses. And I just wanted to show you, when we talk about looking at molecular signature or biomarkers, what that actually looks like. So this is data from a previous study that we did in our lab, but the idea is very similar. So in what you're seeing here is called a heat map. And so we've got each column represents a mouse, and each row represents a particular gene. And you can see that the wild type, the testosterone treated animals have a very different kind of profile compared to the empty controls. And the genes are lighting up a lot more brightly. When they're red, in this case, they're showing an increased expression for these genes, and when they're blue, there's decreased expression. We can then collate all of these data using just very specialized software and discover which pathways are particularly altered in response to DHT treatment. So what you're seeing here is actually acute response, and so we'll be replicating this in our current cohort, and of course we want to look at the long-term effects of our cohort as well. The same analyses is going to be performed in our proteomics. So same idea, looking at particular pathways that are altered in response to treatment. But the nice thing with proteomics is that you can also, or phosphoproteomics, is that we can also look specifically within each protein to see how they are differently activated by pairing each gene with a phospho group. So this is what the circus plot on the right is showing. Again, metabolomics, how we deal with the data sets is very similar, so I won't go into that. So, because of time, I know I'm running a bit behind, I just wanted to show you and highlight this new technique from MGI. So we're kind of in discussion with thinking about how to do our transcriptomics and proteomics using the new technologies. So this is so MGI is this amazing company based in China that are world leaders in the omics solution. And if you have a chance to go, please go up after the seminar to look at some of their machines in one of their rooms. But what I'm showing here is brand new. It allows you to perform transcriptomic analyses and proteomics analyses on the same tissue at the same time. And so you're able to get both of these data sets and get even more results. And the idea for this is because as you add more information, you get a more refined picture, kind of like increasing the pixels of a picture. So you get a much better definition of what is really happening within the cells. And using this technique, you can not only on the cellular level, you can see what changes are occurring within the organelles as well. So in summary, I hope we all recognize that there is an urgent need to upgrade approaches to both detect and to deter doping. And in order to combat this, it really requires a cross-disciplinary and a multi-institutional effort to really bring together different expertise. And so far our data suggests that there are long-term benefits to short-term DHT treatment when it's coupled with resistance training. So perhaps that means that we should bring back some of that discussion about tougher bands in sport. But we'll see what the rest of our study shows. But from my perspective, focused in medical science, there could be health applications as well for those in the general population who really need to increase their muscle mass and muscle performance. And perhaps this is a way to go. This could have clinical applications. And then finally, I hope I've shown you that omics is a viable approach to address some of the limitations within the current doping detection systems. So not only would these biomarkers help us with improving doping detection, hopefully, both acute doping and historic doping, but perhaps these could also be utilized down the track to help us identify any early damage from these users of anabolic steroids. Finally, I need to put that out there. It is still expensive to do omics, and it requires participation from industry partners and just from across the board. We need to have serious investment if we're serious about tackling this problem. And this is not going to be resolved overnight. We're not going to have the answers. It's going to take some time, and it needs to be investment that is ongoing if we're serious about this. So thank you. I just be happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much. So to kick off the questions, what do you see as the practical applications of the research once you finish with it? How will sport actually use it to defeat the cheats?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, we're hoping that with the biomarkers, that's going to enhance the athlete biological passport. And we're trying to streamline that process of allowing it to be incorporated and officially within that the testing kind of regimen. And that's why we are looking at changes not just in muscle, because we're not likely to get muscle biopsies from athletes, but we're more likely to get serum. So making sure that anything that we find in muscles, we can also test in blood. And to be able to, and not only are we doing this in animals, we're making sure that we can detect the same things in humans. And we're going to make sure that our study is robust and well-powered. And so hopefully that would increase the trust in this technology.
So is it a question of monitoring changes over time? So if you start with a baseline when they're a young athlete, and then if they're improving at a, let's say, abnormal rate, then you can do something about it. Is that how it would work?
I think so. Yeah, I think it depends on how young though, because when we're talking about hormones, especially if you're male, like during the puberty, there's going to be a lot of changes naturally. So you know, I think exactly how this is going to be applied practically, you know, there's still going to be a lot of research for that. Like, so we're only exploring one aspect, one variable, and one hormone. So, you know, it's very likely that, you know, with different cocktails, we might get a different picture and different signature altogether. So this is just the beginning to kickstart the conversation and the research, but there's still so much work to be done, which is why we need consistent funding.
Yeah, and what's the difference in approach scientifically with humans and with the mice?
The approach is the same. Yeah,
So
I mean,
you cut the
it's
humans
still
up?
well, you know, I think not quite. But the application of omics is the same. Like, you know, tissue is tissue. But yeah, it's, you know, clearly
And one question I'm sure everyone has on their mind: when the mice reach the top, do they get a treat?
We do. I think we give them a little bit of seeds, but we don't want to give them too much because we don't want to affect the diet because that's introduced.
Right. Would anyone else like to ask a question?
Yeah.
Very
well designed study. Congratulations. I assume you are going to put a single stimulation, right? Are you considering that after the steroid level going back to normal, you give them repeated stimulation to see if there is any long-term?
Yeah, so the stimulation is the training. Yeah, the resistant training is the stimulation.
But not the steroid yet. But just assuming, you know, people may
take
the steroid and then after several weeks, you know,
yeah,
when the steroid level going back to normal, then they get another dose of steroids to enhance an even bigger impact on the muscle development. So
that will have to be like the next phase because, you know, that experiment is going to take years, right? Because if we're going to be doing repeated trainings and repeated treatments, and also actually you got to consider that a mouse's lifespan is only 2 years. So I don't know how many repeated treatments you can do before, you know, then we're going to consider age as a factor.
Jane, thank you very much. Just to in response to your question, that's actually the human study, because the human study involves individuals who are taking steroids on cycles. So when they come back, because we in the study, ethically, we can't give them the steroids. So they are doing whatever they want, they declare what they're doing. We will try, where possible, confirm what they're doing through assessment. But that scenario you just described will happen in the human study now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, but I'm expecting some sort of synergistic effect, you know, on repetitive dosing.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, thank you for the fantastic talk. I'm very interested in your second last comment. Well, I know this is about anti-doping, but the implication you mentioned about in the elderly, because muscle loss now is identified much more serious in elderly than bone loss.
Yes.
And that, can you comment more about whether aging is a serious problem in Hong Kong and in the rest of the world?
Yeah.
And how would that actually benefit, looking at the beneficial side of the research?
I mean, that's still, it's, I think at the moment, prescription of testosterone is only for men who have hypoandrogenism, and that is the kind of the label use any prescription outside of that is right now not recommended. So you won't see older people being prescribed testosterone in order to boost up their muscle mass, and that's because there's terrible side effects with testosterone. This is why it's really exciting, is that if we show that you just have to give them testosterone for a short period of time, and then they're still benefiting afterwards, provided that they're exercising at the same time, perhaps this has clinical applications. But again, this needs to be done properly in a clinical trial.
There's a question here.
Yeah, I can make the question. So I just would like to know, I don't know if you studied about it, but how much of the changes in the muscle and the body are due to the physical changes of taking the testosterone or the behavioral change? Because usually when you take testosterone, you're more agitated, you train more, you work out more, so it kind of also changes the way that you grow your muscles, right?
Right, yeah, I have no idea. We haven't looked at brains or amygdala, and that's quite interesting. I think that's why I made that comment about potentially looking at damage to abusers of androgenic steroids, because I think it's quite well known they get a bit rageful. Yeah, there's a bit of roid rage. And there was one study, as I was preparing for this talk, that was looking at microRNA as a measure of damage in the amygdala of these individuals, and it compares quite well with people with like brain damage. And there's actually, so I think that there's definitely, we definitely need to do more research in that area. And, especially, with the long-term cumulative effects of doping. So not only for catching the anti-doping, but also for, see if we could, maybe that's a great preventative measure to really highlight, hey, you're doing, really big damage and probably long-lasting damage to your brain. Maybe you shouldn't do this anymore.
Right, we'll take two more questions because we have two excellent presentations to follow this excellent presentation. And also afterwards in the garden where you're having your barbecue lunch, you can ask people any questions you like. So in the back first.
Thank you very much for your good study, and I believe your study results can be used for future study on transgenders. It's good to investigate how many years the adaptation to testosterone would remain on transgender women to allow them to compete with the women. Yeah. But I appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That is a study that we are currently doing. We are looking also at sex-specific differences in how, like how that influences the response to testosterone, both in skeletal muscle and in the blood. We have some preliminary data to show that. I won't discuss it here. It's still quite preliminary, but I do believe that the omics can really contribute to that discussion. I think that's what I'll say for the moment. But hopefully the paper should come out soon.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really interesting. I have a question about the washout period. So you've shown a washout period of 3 weeks, another one of 11 weeks, if I'm not wrong. I was wondering if you have any idea of a washout of period of several years, 2, 3, 4 years, because we've seen some athletes going to some banned periods of multiple years, going back to performance, and were really, really good performers again. So one may ask the question: are they still benefiting for their first doping? Do you have any idea? I know it's
No idea, but I think that's precisely what we're trying to test. Like with the, I mean, I think these individuals are, likely to be testing negative under normal means. But, if their performance is increasing at a rate that is a bit unnatural, I suppose, or faster than anticipated, then, likely there is some sort of beneficial effects. But that's what we're hoping to test, that we could find some sort of biomarkers that would really highlight historical androgen steroid usage. That's exactly what we'll be able to answer.
Great. Thanks so much for all the great questions. Thank you very much. So our next speaker is Professor Yannis Pitsiladis on the IOC Medical Commission, Chair of the Scientific Commission on FIMS, Head of the Department of Sport, Physical Education and Health at HKBU, and leader in the fight against dopers and cheats in sport. And no pressure, Yannis, but we've just heard that yesterday's panel discussion has now been viewed by over 4 million people. So, yes. Five. By over 5, another million since 5 minutes ago. Over 5 million people. So, the stage is yours.
At least 5 million.
So you bring up 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mike. And I'd like to start off by really thanking the World Olympian Associations for hosting us here. What a remarkable venue. What remarkable people. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Joël. Thank you, Tony, and your team. Absolutely amazing. Really amazing. Thank you. I must also thank my university, Hong Kong BU, for also supporting this event in such a major way, allowing this event to happen with such great speakers. I mean, wow. I mean, that was just remarkable. The speakers that just preceded me. Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here. It's nice to see so many of you here and the millions who are watching us as well, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'll continue that theme a little bit from what you heard from Jane. She talked very much about the steroid module. I'd like to talk a little bit about from the blood point of view, which is something we can actually do a little bit easier at the moment. And I think it may be the approach in terms of using blood closer to being in the real term being used. So I'll start off with what those of us, I assume most of you would have seen the opening of the games, and you would have seen the Olympic oath that our Olympians in the room, you'll remember when you swore to this oath. And it says very clearly, as also mentioned by Joël earlier, govern them without the use of doping and drugs in the true spirit of sportsmanship. And this is something that personally myself throughout my career I've been focusing on, really to make sport and the competition have meaning. Because if basically doping is going on, cheating in other forms, then what is the point? We're all here, we're all excited. Let's find a solution here. So what is required really, and the prevalence of doping is very difficult to determine, but we want to really change and this is really my kind of life's goal, is to change the paradigm from in sport the cheats are usually a step ahead to this one. The testers need to be a few steps ahead. And whenever I say that, I'm always told, I know Borja used the word romantic. Yes, we are romantic, and this is what we want, but we're not stupid and we're not naive. If we say we think this can happen, is because, as also suggested as well by Jane, if you put enough resources and effort, the technology, and the way technology is advancing, we can really do this. Prior to the pandemic, did anyone believe that we'll be able to come up with a vaccine in a year or so? And humans can do amazing things if we stop fighting and work together, and I think that's really the point. And this dream of mine commenced quite a few years ago, actually, closer to 2008, 2010, when, as a scientist interested in genetics, I was going around the world trying to understand genetics and race, only to uncover doping in the process. And I thought, okay, I need to try and deal with this. And because I was looking at genetic technology, I thought, wow, what about using genetics and omics, as beautifully summarized by Jane? So the first study, which I think is it's changed by itself, sorry, which was quite a pioneering study, was conducted at the time when I was still at the University of Glasgow in Scotland. And what we did is actually, I don't know why this is changing, we actually took two groups of subjects in Scotland and also a group in Kenya at altitude, and we actually provided EPO after a good baseline, and you can see here for 4 weeks EPO, we collected blood, saliva, urine, all the things you'd want, and created a fantastic biobank. We also actually tested the impact of EPO, and EPO works. So don't read some of the papers saying EPO doesn't work. It works, okay? And I don't have time to show you that. But what is important in this study, and I don't have time to go through all the time points of the different samples, is that we uncovered a number of genes that were then replicated in another study. So we're absolutely sure these genes are either upregulated, the ones you can see on the left-hand side at the top, or the ones at the bottom in post-drug intervention, or downregulated, and I say verified with another technology we see in that red box. So we're absolutely sure this works. But I was also listening to James talk. A colleague next to me said, "What about if we make an error because you're using genes that are indirect, and what if you wrongly accuse someone?" And that is really the concern of the authorities, that because we use an indirect approach, that we don't wrongly accuse someone of doping because a gene or markers are different, going up or going down. But maybe altitude does the same thing. Maybe training does the same thing. Maybe someone has a monogenic disorder that allows this to happen as well. So we have to be absolutely sure. So that's also one of the reasons, although this paper was published some years ago, we still haven't got this work in the system yet. But as Jane said, I think the main problem is actually the lack of funding, and it's been going very, very slow. And I think those of you know me very well. One of the reasons I'm also in Hong Kong is that there we can do almost anything, in terms of the technology, in terms of support. Because I'll illustrate that point, and sorry, my slides are going on by themselves, but anyway, that's probably telling me to speed up. So back in 2017, with a small grant, you can't do omics if you've got 100,000. So I visited Illumina, one of the expert companies in the area, who's one of the main companies in the field, and they actually helped run some of the samples from the study I just mentioned to confirm that using sequencing technology could actually really work. And then straight after that, oops, again, it's just going by itself, I did the same thing with BGI, MGI, and as said earlier on, go and see their fantastic technology upstairs. And they ran the same samples, and they did this as a kind of a freebie, as a proof of principle. They ran the samples for us, and I won't go through the details of this, but it's along the lines of what Jane mentioned before. And you can see the clustering, and that's the top 30 genes. We finally see the color changes as you see there. And basically, without going into detail here, is that the MGI sequencing technology, they all worked, by the way, the Illumina technology, the MGI, as well as gene chip technology, which we had used in the previous one, all worked very well, but it actually was the MGI technology that worked the best. And because I'm going over this very, very quickly, I don't want to make this too scientific, there's a paper that confirms that, co-authored by scientists from all the different companies. So this is not a marketing exercise, this is actually real science of what the technology found. And that's why the next approach, which is why I say things are taking time, was to actually do the confounder study, to make sure that this is a typical Venn diagram, you can see in the back all those papers of the cohorts we've done. We've done studies to confirm the normal dose of EPO, the clinical dose, micro doses which athletes were using, transfusions, going to altitude. We've done all those studies, but we're using 1 or 2 genes because we couldn't actually afford to do it properly. But now the situation is changing. It's changing because now with the support of MGI, also WADA, we're able to now do the work properly, which is actually go back to the biobanks, and that's why biobanking is so important, because you have to go and do the study again. Those samples have been collected and are being stored, and we can go back and do the work. And only a few days ago, we also want to publish what we wanted to do so we can get feedback from scientists in the field. And then a few days ago, this paper came out where we, like Jane was saying, that what she's planning to do, we're talking about what we're planning to do and we believe it's going to work, which actually allows other scientists to critique us as we commence this journey, because it will, by the end, cost us a few million to complete this work. We want to make sure we do it properly. And I'm confident now that this is going to work. Why? We have the resources we need, we have the technology we need, and we have the collaborative team that we need. And I can't go through and mentioning all the people involved, but we have people from industry, from anti-doping world. So as I said to you, we also have now the labs that we require, and actually this lab is being currently built in Hong Kong, in Hong Kong BU, will be ready before the end of this year. I'll give you a snapshot of what it looks like, and again, if you go upstairs, you'll actually see some of the technology that will be shown in the lab. This is what it will look like. For those of you doing this kind of work, you'll get an idea of how amazing this lab is. It'll also have this kind of corridor that you can actually walk down and actually see what people are doing, like a Michelin star restaurant, and you see people working in the background, so we can see them doing things. Here you see again the reagent preparation area, because obviously you can have contamination, so we're going to have these things done separately. And I should acknowledge again, my university is giving us really flagship area to do this work and to set up the lab in the right place. You can see also the live preparation lab. And what's really, really important here is as well that we're using robotics and automation. That's really, really, really important. Why? Because yes, we prefer to use humans in our labs, but we're also prone to errors. Okay, so by automating, and I know Linda is sitting in the back from MGI Paris, we were hoping to have on show one of our robots, but it was difficult bringing it here, so it actually is not here today. But what we will have is robotic input to actually allow us to do this, to minimize error. And if there is actually an error, light goes on, we know there's been an error and we can deal with it. Rather than the weeks down the line, you found that someone made an error and the whole study has to be, gets affected. Again, just the sequencing facility, and there's actually the sequencer that we will have in our lab before the end of this year. And yes, we're talking about anti-doping in my talk in James previously, but the same thing applies for precision medicine when it comes to injury prevention. Why, for example, the same diet makes someone okay and someone not so healthy. Individual response, looking also in terms of health, precision prevention, because we need to understand why are some people getting ill in certain environments, others are not. The same facility, so this is not an anti-doping facility, this is a facility to do amazing science, and I invite those of you who've got great samples, come and utilize the facility wherever you are. This is a collaborative center that we are trying to create. I already talked about it's a highly automated facility, and the lab fully smart, so we can run everything from here in one sense if we wanted to. I said about the robot, okay, well let's give us a little example. The nice thing about this as well is, and PhD students, don't worry, we still need you, okay, but this is a threat for you. No, I'm just joking. But you can see here, those of you who work in labs, you know that, high throughput, and I've had PhD students or postdocs have repetitive strain disorder from pipetting all day, and some of you students know you can get that. Again, you have a robot who can do this, you can even greater accuracy and none of those issues. And you can see how this can actually work. That's just to enthuse you a little bit, since you can't actually see it here at OLY as we were hoping to. So my presentation was more to build on what you heard before, that what is required to actually have this paradigm shift, and I hope I've convinced you that with the kind of things that you've heard also from Jane, what you've heard from myself and others today, we can produce a paradigm shift, not in anti-doping, but also in medicine. How many of you have gone to your GP with some ailment and you're treated the same way that I may be treated with the same ailment? But we are so very different. The Human Genome Project was sequenced more than 20 years ago, and are we using genomics? We're not. So we have to modernize, we have to utilize these technologies, and I'm pretty sure within the next 5 years, technology like you're seeing here will become much, much smaller, the size of your iPhone, and probably in your homes. So that's coming. So we have to modernize, and we have to do the science to allow that to happen. And with that, I'll stop. So we have enough time. I was told only 10 minutes, so I've stuck to time 10 minutes, Mike, because he told me beware if you go over.
And he's done it. So you just talked about timelines there. We were told many years ago we'd all be flying around in cars in the air and everything by now. So realistically, when's all this coming?
I'm quoted some years ago saying within a year, and I was wrong, okay? I was wrong because the money didn't come, and then the COVID came and everything else threw us back. I mean, who in this room, and I challenge everyone in this room to say scientifically, you've heard the journey we're going through now. Doing what you've heard today with Jane and what I've showed you here, and we also heard the question about the transgender, which is in one sense using similar technology. This is going to work, so we just have to do it. Never in my career, and I started this work in 2004, did I ever have access to such great people, such great technology, and the resources to do it. So now I think we can say that we're in, talking to use a marathon analogy, we now basically can see the stadium. Whether it's going to be, I would argue, 2 to 3 years, we can get there. But I think we're going to have the same problem that we had in the talks we heard from Borja and also from Carl. The sport needs to also modernize. We have difficulty. Samples have been collected. We've collected samples for this purpose from real athletes that we were never allowed to actually analyze. Not having access to real samples is the problem. In the lab, using this approach, I can, if we dope someone in the lab, which is not doping, just give them a drug, we will detect it 10 out of 10. But someone mentioned before about cocktails of drugs. We need real samples. So the sport has to allow us to have access, and we have a meeting here in Ollie House on the 1st, so in a few days' time, with some of the key players, for me to say to them, how are we going to find a way to use those samples? You heard President Bach mentioned, I think President Bach mentioned the notion of 10 years, we now have the policy of having 10 years samples being stored from these games. You know, let's have access to those samples as well when that's 10 years over from previous games, rather than throwing them away. So there's modernization we need to do to get to that.
And so what would the other major stumbling blocks be? One you're saying is some of the sports need to get on board. What other stumbling blocks are there?
The other issue that we have, which also again, that's why the session on technology days, we put them all together on purpose, is also the ethics of this. A lot of people are terrified that we're doing genetics and you know, my genetics information is going to be leaked out and it's my personal data and all this, and there's all these GDPR rules, etc., which applies to the technology. We don't want to cause any harm to anyone. We want to make sure that we can do this, you know, in a proper, ethically approved way by our ethics committee and so on. But I would say the rules also have to modernize, you know, and the rules shouldn't be there to block progress. And we need to engage with the bioethicists. That's what part of this group that we have, and we just didn't have time because you said only 4 or 5 speakers. We want to have 10. We wanted to have some bioethicists here. But that's really important to have those bioethicists in the room, and they are part of our groups, and others are doing the same thing as well, because those are going to be our biggest problem. And I found that in the last few days, in terms of being part of the games group here in the games, is that we are trying to do our very best, but always not wanting to upset someone. You know, and there's different cultures, different approaches. There's actually a fine balance always.
So, are you confident?
I'm 100% confident. You know, I mean, you can't get more confident. You know, but there's a but though. We must be able to do the work. You know, and I said, I feel for the first time, we have everything needed now. And actually, also, I should also mention one of my mentors, Aurel Denner, who's the chair of our medical mission in IOC, who can't be here today because he's broken his ankle. He's one of the biggest supporters of this technology. When we first had this idea of doing it, he said, Yanis, go at 100 miles an hour, you know, and he's really supportive of this and will visit us in Hong Kong to see our labs once they're ready.
So he asked you to slow down, did he, if you're going to go 100 miles an hour?
He just wants it done, you know, so thank you.
Any questions before we move on? No? Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So our final speaker is Ian Killery from HKBU. He works with grassroots and elite athletes, specializing in performance lifestyle support. So we've been talking a lot about the science, but what about the people?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mike. Thank you to the World Olympians Association for allowing us to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak here also, and thank you to the previous presenters also. I think I'm going to pick on some of the stuff that you've mentioned so far and try to supplement it somehow. So my speech is about artificial intelligence in sport, and if Mike doesn't mind, I'm going to do a quick task for you guys, which is a bit of audience participation. Please stand if you have a good understanding of what artificial intelligence is.
Two people, 4 people, 5 people, 5.5 people.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. The reason I wanted to ask that question, last year Ipsos did a survey, and they asked that exact question. In the general population, the feedback is 67% have a good understanding of what artificial intelligence is globally. So globally, 67% of people feel that they have a good understanding. They may not have a good understanding, but they feel that they do. So according to this room, we don't quite meet that standard. Okay, so just to set some context, I suppose, which makes it easy for me. Now I can talk, and none of you will know if I'm talking rubbish. So this is my agenda quickly. I'm just going to give you a bit of background about where artificial intelligence first started in sports science, applications where it's used now,
my reflections or speculations about what that means for elite sport moving forward, and then some opportunities and challenges. This talk is basically a summary of a paper that we've just had accepted to the British Journal of Sports Medicine. It hasn't been published yet, so I haven't got the citation, so welcome to the global premiere of this paper. So this is where we started. Artificial intelligence methods were used about 30 years ago now. It initially started by data capture, data analysis to predict models of and simulations of perfect technique, pretty much, perfect movements. And then they would provide a report to the athlete about how their technique compared to what the model should be, or what the perfect technique should be. So it was sort of dubbed an expert system. The machine should be able to give you a series of recommendations about how you can train or change your technique to improve it in the same way that a human expert should be able to do. So that's why it was dubbed an expert system. It then moved on to applications in terms of injury, trying to identify injury risk or predict injury risk based on training load and types of training, etc. So where we are now is we still have those applications for sports performance and injury prediction, but there's a much broader set of applications now. The two that I'm going to focus on are about decision making, tactical decision making or strategic decisions, and then officiating support. So this is where we are now. The two examples that I'm going to use are where we may potentially be going, and this is where I'm hoping to stimulate your your thoughts. And again, thank you to Mike. I've been primarily based upstairs speaking to Olympians, trying to get them to sign their name on their poster. So I've had an opportunity to discuss some of this with them. So it's been really enlightening, actually. The first example is about tactics or strategy AI tools. The image that you can see is taken from a recent study based in football. And on the left-hand side, this is what the coaches were planning to do from set pieces. These are corners in soccer. And on the right-hand side, you can see how the tactic AI tool amended them or changed them to try and increase the chances of success. Now, in this study, 90% of the coaches favored the AI models or the AI tactics. So 9 out of 10 coaches favored those models. So as we continue to pursue these strategy AI or tactic AI models, we may see changes to the sports that we know. We may see different formations. If I continue the football example, different formations, different styles of play. That may then lead to different metrics that we track. Pass percentage or what XG is a famous metric that we're monitoring at the moment, which may fundamentally change how sports are played and how they're trained, and yeah, just changes to sports that we know and how we watch them currently. The second is about officiating, and this is where I've had some really good discussions over the past few days, actually. This image is taken from the IOC media launch of the Olympic AI agenda. So this image is taken from a small video that they were using to indicate how AI is going to be used to supplement or support officiating during certain events. So gymnastics and diving are the main ones. And in this image, you can see that the angles, the entry speeds, the alignments, the movements are assessed in real time, and that information is given to the judge in real time. So when the judge is doing their scoring, they know exactly how that athlete has moved throughout that sort of movement. As Borja mentioned earlier, he mentioned about how super shoes have created a new category of records, and they're incomparable prior to super shoes. And I would argue that these AI technologies might lead us to have the same argument. We might have to categorize these records completely differently now, because there may be, I believe this is the highest bar that we have ever seen. There shouldn't be any mistakes anymore. So they should be judged to an unmistakable standard, basically. The issue that I have here, and what I've been speaking to with various different Olympians over the past few days, is that whether this will lead to an over-scientific view of our sports, will the artistic and creative elements of these sports be lost? Will the beauty be lost? So how can we try to strike a balance between artistry, which is perhaps judged subjectively, and having objective components too? So that's, I think, an issue that we need to try and resolve, and perhaps that leads to the ethical discussions that Yanis mentioned previously. So, as I say, that image was taken from the launch of the Olympic AI agenda, and these are the 5 main agenda points that they are trying to focus on. I'm going to speak about the top 2, mainly the first one, but I'll touch briefly on the second one. So opportunities, okay, formatting's gone. Opportunities are here. Carl has done a great introduction about athlete welfare, particularly in the heat. And I would argue that, or I would supplement by saying it's not just about heat. I think Mike mentioned as well, there is an onus on the federations to understand what they need to do. And it needs to be contextualized, it needs to be workable for the sports that they have. So the image above here is from rugby, and these are instrumented mouth guards, the gum shield, which have sensors in them now, and they can tell you exactly how forceful tackles are, and hits are, and collisions are, which aids us to understand more about concussion risk and head injuries, head trauma, those kinds of issues. Again, following some of the discussion that you mentioned earlier, I think you guys had a discussion in the front row about whether they need to be codified into the laws, and whether who makes the decision to pull the athlete. Rugby have codified their the use of IMGs, instrumented mouth guards, into the laws. If an IMG indicates that a collision has met the threshold, the referee is told, or the match official is told, and the player has to have a concussion check at some point. Initially, when they were introduced, it was effectively immediate. World Rugby are now trialing different methods, so they might wait until half time, or they might wait until there's a break in play, something like that. And the reason that they're doing that is to try and develop trust with the players. The players were saying, I didn't need to be called off, I didn't need to be taken off the field to play, I was fine. So it interrupted the game, it was causing some issues in terms of the players. So my argument there in terms of the welfare protocols is that you need to have the trust of the players to be able to do it. Then you need to have their compliance ultimately, and their support for those sorts of technologies. So we need to keep them on side and ensure that those technologies are being used in a way that they understand. So they need to be educated as well along the journey. So I think athlete welfare is covered. In terms of clean sport, this is perhaps where I'll touch on James' presentation too. AI methods can be very helpful in terms of the athlete biological passport. We can use AI methods using an athlete's biological data, the historical data, to predict these sorts of models, to predict exactly where their biomarkers could be based on the given contextual factors. And we can continually update and train those models as new research becomes available. So when Jane is finished, we can update those findings into the AI training to then again adjust those biomarkers as we see fit, and try and try and reduce the risk of false positives and false negatives. We can also introduce other findings. So Yanis mentioned about altitude, for example, environmental conditions, how those affect an athlete's biological profile. Again, trying to identify much more subtle changes in their condition. Me and Patrick had a discussion the other day, for example, about microdosing. We would have a much better understanding of how their biological profile changes over time, how biomarkers change. Again, just trying to identify those much more minute changes. And then the deep learning techniques. Deep learning techniques, I guess, in summary, would just look at constantly analyzing data sets and identifying trends that we are not aware of yet, and we probably would not be able to identify. So that might indicate, well, this community of athletes has an anomaly. Why do they have that anomaly? These AI methods will be able to identify what that anomaly is. They might not necessarily be able to tell us what it is, but that's where we can then do further research to try and identify why they have that anomaly, for example. Okay, so clean sport is a massive area where AI can benefit us and reduce those chances of doping. So some of the big challenges that we have in achieving this, the first one is policy, but policy is informed by understanding. There are huge differences in understanding trust and sentiment towards AI based on the territories in which you live. So I would say that the average understanding of AI is 67%. 52% of people feel anxious about AI technologies. I won't do audience participation again. And another 52% of people trust AI companies as much as they trust other technology companies. Okay, so 1 in 2. So that leads to variation in policy. In this image that you can see, China is in red. And I quite disagree with actually the color coding here. China's in red, but that's because they have regulation of AI. The colors in yellow are countries which are intending to introduce regulation of AI. Green is countries that have no plans to introduce regulation of AI. So we could discuss about the colors associated there. But that is influenced by understanding sentiment and trust of these technologies. So ultimately that will determine what we are allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. Some countries may be allowed to do a lot more, and we may be able to do less. I remember one of our first conversations with Yanis about doping, for example, is about the regulation or the consistency of doctors and what they prescribe in different regions. So my argument would be the same thing. Trying to create consistency would be a big challenge. Data has been something that has been mentioned as well. Appropriate data. Are AI models being trained using relevant data which is specific to the context that we're seeking to study, or is it public health data, for example? AI methods may be able to have the best benefit for perhaps underfunded sports, yet we might not be able to get those sports to have the data to capitalize on the technologies anyway. So that is an issue that we have. The bottom part is about education. Now I used coach education just because that's a term. Really that's about practitioner education. I mean that in terms of coaches, physiotherapists, strength and conditioners. Every member of the multidisciplinary team really needs to be educated about these methods. In future we need to understand what we need to measure based on the metrics that we were discussing earlier, how to use the technologies to measure it, and then how that informs training. So our coach education needs to have a real step change. We already know that it's outdated. Coach education doesn't meet the requirements of sports directors or heads of performance services already, and now AI presents a real need to revisit that. The other part to touch on, I suppose, is that currently AI practitioners or AI researchers, developers, are not based in a sports science field. They're based in another field, and then we're trying to bring them into our field and understand what we need to do. So ideally we would develop AI practitioners within sports science who have the understanding of the needs of the sports science community, and then that will allow us to move on and kick forward. And then, as Jane has mentioned, and lots of you have mentioned, financial implications. But this relates to the second point of the IOC agenda, who want these technologies to be available to all of the Olympic community, which is a massive challenge. It may be the case that the richer nations who have access to these technologies and more funding are able to harness them and increase their sports performance hugely, whereas the smaller nations, the nations that don't have as much money, is left behind. So that's a real issue. I'm not sure how we resolve that issue, and I'm not sure what the IOC want to do by ensuring equal access to those technologies. Does that mean that any findings by the richer nations need to be provided to the smaller nations? I'm not too sure. So there's a massive challenge around that. The other part on there is about administrative procedures, which is a big bugbear for me, bureaucracy, and how long it would take. We were talking this morning, for example, about how long it might take to get a memorandum of understanding signed. For example, it might be 6 months. In that time, the technology has already been born and it's died, and we've moved on. So we need to have these dynamic processes which allow us to keep up with these technologies. Those are my two takeaways, the bottom two really. I have a call to all of you here about collaboration. We need to be able to work together, not just people involved in sports federations. We need athletes, we need academic institutions, we need government, because we need to discuss regulation and that will allow us to harness these technologies. And then we just need to be more dynamic. We need to have fluid systems that allow us to move with the times as quickly as we can before we get left behind.
Excellent, thanks so much. I think the title of the next panel discussion should be Decision Making and Ethics in Sport to Protect Athletes' Health. As you say, as a former Secretary General and CEO of an international federation, you'd like to do things more quickly than you can, but there's a lot of people who have to be considered and brought into the process. And actually, some of the roadblocks are caused by the athletes themselves, who don't really think about the future or their health. They just want to win, and that's the end of it. So how you get over that is something that's open for discussion. If there are any questions, I'll just ask one or two questions first. You said the coaches preferred the AI model over their own. Does that mean they're doing themselves out of a job?
Well, yeah, perhaps it is. I guess the implication of that in future is how do we educate coaches in the first place? They may not be as creative as they need to be. I guess if we're training them in a correct fashion, it's about how they can use these technologies in a way where they can still make the final decision, I suppose. I did a study recently, and the question was something like, what are athletes' needs? So please describe athletes' needs. And the responses from coaches are detailed instruction. Every other discipline gives a much more detailed, convoluted answer, but coaches say detailed instruction. Now, if you look at how AI is used in the NBA, teams are using that to monitor players' shooting percentage, monitor fatigue, and then try and rotate the players, bring on substitutions to keep the shooting percentages high, to increase their chances. Now, is the coach responsible for understanding all that data? Probably not. They probably have an analyst that's supporting them. But in future, we need to ensure that the coaches need to understand what needs to be measured, how it needs to be measured, even if they don't use the technology themselves, but then how that technology informs their decision making. So I think that's the biggest part.
And what do you think is the optimal way for a federation or an event owner to decide how to use the technology? And I'll just mention VAR, which is a huge issue in football, and some people would say, yeah, great, let's have VAR. However, if someone's fingernail is offside, that doesn't seem to be appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. That's something that we mentioned in the paper, actually. It's a call to federations to consider what the spirit of their sport is. So VAR and technologies in football there's various studies which have highlighted how they've affected spectator experience negatively. People don't enjoy the spectacle as much. You don't know if a goal is a goal anymore. So the question for federations is, what do we want to prioritize? For the gum shields, the mouth guards, World Rugby have done a fantastic job, in my view, because they've implemented that technology without sacrificing anything to do with the game. It's already, they provide a substitution for the player to get a head check, which is already part of the practice anyway, and it hasn't sacrificed there's no material sacrifice. So that's what sports need to decide. Borja mentioned about changing the landing zone in long jump. That completely changes the sport, in my view. People train for years to make the run-up right, and if you remove that, it seems to change the sport. And I think
is it worse or better? That's the question.
I would argue that it's worse.
Is it just that you're used to something?
Part of the skill is being able to land right there. It's not just about running up and jumping as long as you need to land right there. That's part of it. That's part of the expertise that you need.
Yeah, but surely the sport is who can jump the furthest, so why does it matter if you can just hit them up?
Prior to that point. So you need, there's two parts to it, right? You need to time it well. So I understand the question. The point is, what is the fundamental part of the sport that you want to protect? Is it spectator enjoyment or whatever it is? And how do you ring fence that, I suppose?
And in terms of all these changes in the technology, who should have the final say? The athlete, the spectator, or the governing body, the media? Who should have the final say in what happens?
Well, I guess. Well, that's why I think you need the collaboration. There needs to be, in my romantic view, I would take, and I'm sorry to Patrick, I'd take the broadcasters out. I would take the broadcasters out. I think you need to have a commonly held view of players, federations, people involved, and then go to broadcasters to see, you know, how that sits really. Yeah.
As a former broadcaster as well, as the former head of an international federation, as a former, I'd like to have all the decision-making power because I've sat on all sides of the fence. But anyway, have any questions?
I just want to supplement the first question asked because in last year the Harvard came up with a study report about exactly the phobia of the AI replace those employment opportunities for those sport-related or other career-related professionals. Actually, right now there's a new position called AI manager, and that manager actually look after all the related department under this. To exactly precisely answer the question, the new role and position of the coaches, they're not only talking about the traditional approach. They need to take care of the sport data analytics. They need to work with the physiotherapists. They need to take care of the schedule, the precision, in-season, off-season training. So everything will be looked after by the new role of the coach in the new era. It's not the same job descriptions, it will be new. So we need that kind of multidisciplinary coach, as Ian mentioned. The education system has to be elevated. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks so much. Patrick Singleton, the WA Treasurer, so I don't know if he's going to be talking about money as well.
No, not money. I used to be on the IOC Medical and Scientific Commission with Yanis, and actually it was you who got me really interested in AI, and I use it religiously every day. In fact, I even threw your slide presentation into AI just to summarize. My apologies. I mean, we are seeing strategists now in many sports. We're seeing it heavily in Formula One. It influences the outcomes of Formula One races on teams. We're seeing it in America's Cup, Sail GP. The strategists are really on the boats now in sailing. And I just wonder how, will the strategists take over from the coach? Because you need a certain amount of EQ rather than IQ. You need EQ to relate to your team sport, your players, and how will that strategist who's dealing with data be able to identify with his players?
Yeah, it's a good point. One of the reasons that I say about coach education being outdated is the point that you mentioned about EQ. You see a lot of coaches then doing additional qualifications around emotional intelligence, for example, or just general coaching practice, not sports coaching, life coaching, executive coaching, to be able to facilitate their athletes to take their own decisions or take ownership, for example, and develop skill sets that they want them to have. So coach education prior to AI, I would say, needed to go in that direction. I would say that it still needs to focus on that because it's about motivating those athletes and getting compliance for a strategy change or implementing a tactic that they might not necessarily agree with, perhaps. But I think that's where coach education is going or needs a bigger focus. Patrick mentioned about a multidisciplinary team, and I think that coach, whoever's going to be the final decision maker, is probably the person who has to piece together the learnings from the strategist and then try and get the best out of the athletes alongside that strategy. So I think it's moving in that direction, the understanding of what the data can provide, how that influences decision making, and then using the coach's understanding of the athletes to motivate them in the right way to get the compliance that they need.
Great, thanks so much. Sadly, we are running out of time. Well, we've actually run well over time, so thank you very much. And we can continue the conversation up in the barbecue in the garden. But before that, we've talked a lot about the need for research and for people to look at all these areas. And so I'd like to ask Dr. Albert Chow, the Vice President of Teaching and Learning at HKBU, to talk about an exciting new benefit for Olympians. Would you rather stand and use this? Or?
I received an order from Jane.
You received an order, right? Okay, well, you must do as you're told.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be very brief. Okay, for those of you who were here yesterday, I apologize for repeating myself, okay, but it's going to be a slightly different version today. It gives me a lot of pleasure to announce this admission scheme and scholarship for Olympians worldwide, okay, from HKBU. Our target are international and mainland China Olympians or equivalent. Okay, they could be current, retired, nominated by the World Olympians Association, Champion Foundation in China, or other Olympian-related organizations. And we are targeting at undergraduate level studies in the first stage, but we are going to extend it to top postgraduates very soon. Now, you may wonder why all these Olympians would like to come to Hong Kong. They have so many options around the world. Of course, we have some peculiar, very special attractions. It is a East-West cultural exchange center. You see a lot of Chinese culture and meeting Western culture. We are an international innovation and technology center. What you are seeing is an image of the Hong Kong Science Park. HKBU has labs over there as well. Thirdly, we have vibrant city life. What you are seeing is the drone show at the harbor in Hong Kong, okay, in the Chinese New Year period. So there will be a lot of activities, a lot of good food, a lot of good hiking trails, good sailing waters, okay, in the territory. And it is also a gateway to China. This is a long bridge linking Hong Kong to Zhuhai. Okay, Zhuhai is one of the cities in the Greater Bay Area in southern China, a quickly booming economic district and technological site in the world. And graduates will have excellent prospects. We are underhanded, okay, in almost every single profession in Hong Kong. So employment is always full. And then after why Hong Kong, why HKBU? Okay, I think I don't need to say much because so many of my colleagues have spoken today, and I think they have already convinced you that we have a lot of advantages for our students. We have world-class sports science and research education program, diverse learning experience, extensive international network, and then a very flexible curriculum. And we are ranked number 2 globally in the world, actually, in the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings on the SDG 4, Quality Education, okay? Now, so Yanis has talked about our heavy investment in a year to come, okay? You will see a whole lot more research facilities, education facilities for sports science students. But I must emphasize that when athletes come to study at HKBU, they are not restricted to study sports-related disciplines. They can take anything, okay? Literature, business, whatever. And we believe that it is important for the athletes to acquire a transdisciplinary education. Okay, I'll come back to this point. And this is why we give them very diverse learning experience. Learning is not just in the classroom or in campus. Study tours, trips, service trips. Yesterday we heard from Ms. Yang. Okay, a lot of athletes are doing charity work. Okay, so the service learning trips are actually an opportunity for them to combine their knowledge, skills, and the service they provide to the community. We arrange students to visit China, visiting to say Tencent, Huawei, all these big companies, and internships. We have extensive worldwide network. As of today, we have about 370 academic partners all over the world, and every year we receive more than 1,000 exchange students or full-time students from all over the world, and we send out 600 of them. Okay. The curriculum is highly flexible. Students can come to do a disciplinary major, or they do a second major. The second major can be transdisciplinary. For example, they can study a second major in sports management. A business student will bring marketing techniques. A creative writing student will bring in knowledge about how to write an appealing story about an athlete. Journalism students can do sports reporting, broadcasting, that sort of things. They can do a concentration, going deep in a particular area under the major, or they do a minor. We provide students with the choice of subject as well as the choice of pathway. It can be highly individualized. They can do a transdisciplinary approach, or they can do a more structured pathway if they decide to go for a professional recognition. And the other unique feature of HKBU is that we do have a campus in Zhuhai, which is at the other end of that long bridge I showed you. Okay, it is just about 2 hours on a coach. Now, all teaching in our Hong Kong campus and in the Zhuhai campus is conducted in English. Okay, so the medium is not an issue. And the programs, the quality assurance in our Zhuhai campus is actually done by the Hong Kong side. Okay, so the students from both campuses would receive the same qualification. So that's why our students can spend some of their time in Hong Kong, some of their time in Zhuhai, getting the better end, the better side of both worlds, okay, and then they will graduate with an HKBU degree. So again, this scheme is for international and mainland China Olympians all over the world, and it is the first scheme for Olympians in Hong Kong. We partner with the World Olympics Association. We support the transition of Olympians and Paralympians from the athlete competing career to after graduation. And it is actually, we aim at developing a dual career for them, okay? Finally, it is tailor-made study schedule and learning support. So we provide scholarships, full tuition waiver, half tuition waiver, renewable, and we also provide a 50,000 Hong Kong dollars annual living expenses. That is about 6,000. 50,000 Hong Kong is about 60,000 euros. And then we have rich experience in nurturing athletes. We started our own scheme, local scheme, back in 2016. And our students are actually competing while they study. We have 3 student athletes in this particular Paris 2024 Olympics, and then 1 in the Paralympics. Our students won, they study well, they compete well, okay? And the most unique feature of our scheme is that we provide tailor-made learning support, small class, one-on-one tutorial. We record all our classes so our athletes can view in their own time. And we provide online learning support as well. And whenever they are in the campus in Hong Kong, we provide activities for them to adapt to university life. Finally, we also provide non-academic support, individualized mentoring, psychological counseling, career planning. We extend the normal study period. A regular undergraduate will complete the degree in 4 years, but the athletes, as they are competing, so we allow 6 years, 8 years, or even longer for them to complete. And our teachers will work out the study schedule and the training schedule together with the coach. And then finally, there will be personalized academic advising and guidance. So please visit our website, okay, for the admission scheme on the left-hand side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, to conclude, Professor Yanis Vitsalos will say a few words, and then it's up into the garden for the barbecue and for the lunch. We've concluded the conversation, but also if you want to see the genetic sequencers that were talked about earlier on, the MGI sequencers, you go up the stairs, you turn right, it's the first room on the right, and you can have a demonstration. Yanis.
Thank you, Mike, and I very much appreciate we're 37 minutes late, so I'll keep this quite short. Again, I must thank the World Olympic Association for this event, Hong Kong BU, NGI, and other partners, or else this would not have happened. You know, we've spent quite a big resource, but I think you've all enjoyed the 2 days. I just want to clarify something I said before, because again, I could be seen as being quite naive when I said I'm 100% confident. So let me just explain and to end off, and I think it's a nice way to end off. You would have heard over the last 2 days technologies that are now available. When I say available, they're not somewhere there, they're actually tangible. You could actually do the work. There are the people, the expertise, the people, the partnerships, the money, the scholarships. That sounds all great, okay? But there's something else which I didn't mention, because that could be a whole seminar in itself. History teaches us. We learn a lot of lessons from history. And as a Greek, I must go back to ancient Greece, the Olympic Games. What happened to the ancient Olympics? They ended. Why did they end? Corruption, rules not being enforced, cheating, becoming a spectacle. So, we have to waken up. Ignore history at our peril. You'll all be aware that next year will be the launch of the Enhanced Games, where everything is possible. Isn't that what happened in ancient Greece in some ways, that ended the games? So I think we have to get it right now. If we don't get it right, the Olympic Games, as we know, could be under threat. And I think that could be our trump card that may make the focus even greater. Because I said to you, what we need is a concerted effort. And that concerted effort, I think, you saw some of that today. So that is why I feel very, very confident that together, with all the universities that are part of this, the institutions, technology, etc., we can really get there. And I hope over the past 2 days you saw some of that technology. Some of the difficulties, there are more challenges ahead than behind us. But now we know how to deal with some of those challenges. And so with those few remarks, please enjoy your lunch. Please go and look at those facilities or the technologies that we talked about. They are truly remarkable. And again, you'll be convinced, as I am, that these are the kind of approaches we need to really focus on the integrity of competition. And maybe my final remark will be, there's nowhere better to be talking about this here at Ollie House. Why? Because you, the Olympians in the audience, you are our focus. You are the ones that matter most. At the IOC Medal Commission, Heike will know that we always talk about athlete-centered in everything we do. And I think these 2 days were all about that. And I'm also very proud to be a member of staff at Hong Kong because you saw not only the facilities, the support for the research, and also scholarships. And currently 2 of our Olympian PhD students are actually out in the field today. That's why they're not in the room. Some of you would have heard Daria speak yesterday. Her PhD is on anti-doping. And Christopher Pamichalopoulos is also out in the field now, working with the sensors that you've heard today. So actually 2 Olympians already, one from Cyprus and one from Croatia, are already out there doing their work. I hope more of you will join us. And with those remarks, thank you again very much. Over to you.